Chapter 120. Too disappointed Gu Yundong did not know whether to laugh or cry. Yunshu, eldest sister approves of you not attending this school not because you are too willful, but because eldest sister feels that this teacher is too pedantic and completely contradicts eldest sister's views. Gu Yunshu tilted his head. Huh. In the past, father said that one has to pass many examinations to become a preparation scholar, an elementary scholar, a high scholar, and an honorable scholar. Every time they take an examination, they have to stay in a narrow shed for a day or even a few days. In such an environment, not to mention a weak scholar, even a strong man might not be able to last. Look at that teacher. Isn't he so fair and thin that he looks like he would collapse at the slightest breeze? His thoughts are simply misleading. The imperial court even sets up a field leave every May to encourage students to go home and cut wheat. Why is it that in the eyes of that teacher, field work is something that students shouldn't do? She even suspected that the teacher was still a scholar because he was not feeling well in the examination hall. Moreover, the expression on the master's face when he was with a woman was as if she had tainted his innocence. It was simply blinding. Did he think that he was in high demand? She did not think that the teacher was a bad person. From what he said, if the student's family was in trouble, he would help. It was just that she did not agree with the teacher's views. It was better to find a suitable teacher. Gu Yunshu felt that what eldest sister said made sense. So that teacher is wrong. Gu Yundong pinched his face. Let's not think about Mo Hall. Let's go to another school. Gu Yunshu was about to leave when he heard this and immediately stopped in his tracks. But didn't you say that the school fees are very expensive? This is all hearsay. Eldest sister thinks that it's impossible to judge a school without taking a look personally. For example, Mo Hall. Previously, she had heard the village chief brag about it. It was good in every aspect. Now that she saw the teacher, she felt that rumors were indeed terrifying. Gu Yunshu nodded and followed her obediently. But the result was not satisfactory. Gu Yundong had just spoken a few words with the concierge when the other party asked for a tael of silver first. Later on, they happened to see a teacher who came out. His disdainful expression made people want to hit him. When the teacher saw that they were dressed averagely, he even asked the gatekeeper to chase them away. She would not come to such a lousy school even if it was free. Gu Yundong tried her best to restrain herself from beating him up and left with the three of them. Gu Yunshu sighed faintly and slowly shook his head. I'm simply too disappointed in them. Gu Yundong, who had been holding his breath, was amused by his words. You're so worried at such a young age. It's not like there are only those teachers in this world. If there's no one in town, let's go to the county city. Why are you disappointed? To the county? Yes. Gu Yundong's first choice was the town because it was close and convenient for transportation. Gu Yunshu was young, so it was not a problem for him to be enlightened in the town. He could also go to the county when he was a little older. From the looks of it, she should know more about the schools in the county. Gu Yunshu was extremely distressed. The tuition fees in the county must be very expensive. Both of them were deep in thought. After taking a few steps, they realized that there seemed to be two people missing behind them. Where were her mother and sister? Chapter 121. Returning to the village. Gu Yundong's eyebrows twitched. She quickly turned around to look for it and heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, they were only 3 meters away and were not lost. She held Gu Yunshu's hand and turned back. She saw the two of them staring at a stall selling pears. Madame Yang swallowed and whispered, I'm not hungry. Gu Yunka sniffed hard. I just want to smell it. One don't want to eat it. As the two of them spoke, they carefully moved their feet, wanting to leave the fruit stall. However, they did not succeed. After moving for a long time, they only managed to move half a meter. On the other hand, the old man selling pears was doing his best to persuade the customers to stay. These pears are very crispy and have a lot of juice. They're sweet and delicious. Why don't you buy 2 for the children? They're not expensive. They're all planted by my family. 1 copper coin for each. Gu Yundong had already walked up to her. Seeing this, she could not help but rub her forehead. She had fruits in her spatial storage, but other than the few apples she took out last time, she did not take any out. One reason was that it was inconvenient to live in someone else's house. The other reason was that there were few fruits here. Coupled with the season, there were even fewer ripe fruits now. Just like apples, they couldn't even be bought in the county. The pears looked good. She looked at the stall in front of her and gave the stall owner 30 copper coins. She picked 30 pears. The old man's eyes lit up. He even gave her 2 more for free. Gu Yundong wiped them with a handkerchief and gave them 1 each. Madame Yang happily took a bite. But Gu Yunka frowned and looked up at Gu Yundong. She said seriously, "I'm just smelling it." I don't want to buy it." She was sensible. Gu Yundong also nodded seriously. "Yes, eldest sister wants to buy it. But let's agree that you're not allowed to stop while walking next time. Even if you want to smell it, you have to tell eldest sister first, understand? Otherwise, if eldest sister didn't notice, you and mother will be lost." Next time, she would hold the young lad's hand and let Gu Yunshu hold Madame Yang's hand. Gu Yunka nodded. "Okay, I'll be obedient. Let's eat." Only then did the little girl bite hard, so sweet that her eyes narrowed. Gu Yundong saw that it was getting late and she had finished asking about the school. She ate a bowl of noodles at the noodle stall and brought her family back to Yongfu village. Gu Yunshu got into the carriage and remembered something. Eldest sister, Nyo Dan is still in Mo Hall. If the teacher teaches him wrongly, will it be bad for Nyo Dan? One have to tell Nyo Dan. Gu Yundong was stunned. This matter, she thought for a moment. Don't say any more. I'll talk to the village chief later. However, she felt that nothing would change. She did not agree with the teacher's concept, but most people in this era might still think that he was right. They felt that since they were studying, they should focus on one goal and not be distracted by anything else. Especially in the countryside, where their knowledge was limited, they felt that students should focus all their energy on studying. Going to the fields? We have parents and grandparents at home. We don't need you. Gu Yundong shook her head and drove the carriage back to Yongfu village. Madame Dong was at home, holding the cloth that Gu Yundong had brought over and making clothes for them. Seeing them enter, she quickly stood up and helped lead the carriage into the courtyard. After she tied the reins, she whispered to Gu Yundong, "You didn't know that the Hu family was up to no good again after you left today." Because Hu Liang always caused trouble for Gu Yundong, Madame Dong could not help but pay more attention to the Hu family. Fortunately, he wasn't looking for trouble with her this time. Chapter 122, Books in the Space. Gu Yundong took out the pears and asked as she walked to the kitchen, "What happened to the Hu family?" This morning, Hu Liang woke up and shouted. Later, for some reason, he suddenly said that Zhuangzi had also been to the county city. Moreover, Hu Liang had a fight with Zhuangzi before he was knocked out. Dong Xiulan sighed. Jin Yuexiang went to Zhuangzi's house and insisted that Zhuangzi had harmed Hu Liang and wanted him to compensate. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. The Hu family must be crazy to want to extort money from everyone. They said that Zhuangzi knocked Hu Liang unconscious. Where was the evidence? They opened their mouths and bit him. How could Zhuangzi's family be willing? Zhuangzi rushed up to hit the Hu brothers at that time. If Zhuangzi's sister, Lan Huaner, hadn't cleverly gone to look for the village chief, who knows what would have happened? Gu Yundong sympathized with the village chief. Then what happened next? The village chief was also angry. There's no end to their nonsense. He told the Hu family not to cause trouble. It was the Peng family who broke Hu Liang's leg. If you have the ability, go to the Peng family. If you continue to accuse others, they'll chase the Hu family out of the village. The Hu family was shocked and returned home dejectedly. However, this time, the Hu family and Zhuangzi's family had completely fallen out. Dong Shilan didn't know what the others were thinking, but she felt that this was good. Hu Liang's leg was broken, so let's see if he still dared to do bad things everywhere. Without him taking the lead, Zhuangzi and the other two also knew their place. Gu Yundong treated the Hu family's matter as a joke. She went into the kitchen, washed a few pears, cut them, and asked Dong Shilan to bring them out for everyone to eat. Then, she carried the remaining pears into her room. She asked them not to disturb her and sat on the edge of the bed. She calmed down and began to search her spatial storage. Gu Yundong vaguely remembered that there were a few books in her spatial storage about planting fruit trees. During the apocalypse, everyone was focused on collecting supplies for food and clothing. Books were thrown aside and ignored. It was the same for Gu Yundong back then. As long as she had food and clothes, she could not care about anything else. Later on, when she was hiding in a small bookstore to avoid zombies, a teammate beside her sighed and said, "If one day, the apocalypse really ends, but these books are destroyed, won't a lot of knowledge be cut off?" As soon as he finished speaking, the zombies came in. In a moment of desperation, Gu Yundong only had time to scoop up the pile of books beside her into her space. Because of her teammates' words, Gu Yundong no longer only collected food and clothes. Occasionally, she would collect things that were not often used. After that, in order to survive, Gu Yundong did not carefully read these books. When she saw the old man selling pears today, Gu Yundong suddenly had the idea of planting fruit trees. There were not many types of fruits here. The prices were not low but ridiculously high. For example, the apples she had seen in the prefectural city. Moreover, fruits were not easy to preserve. The pears she bought today had actually been plucked from the tree for some time. Some of its skin was a little wrinkled. However, she had a spatial storage. Time stopped inside. Even if she kept the fruits for a year or two, they would still be fresh. When it was not easy to sell the fruits in the county city, she could sell them to the prefectural city and further away. Even if she couldn't sell them, she could still make easy-to-storage food like jam and dried fruits. Coincidentally, she knew how to do all of this. To her, the most difficult part was actually the first step, planting fruit trees. Chapter 123, Determined Madame Fang and her daughter found it. Soil and protection issues, and fruit tree cultivation techniques. After reading 2 thick books, Gu Yundong felt that it was almost the new year. Moreover, it was definitely not possible to rely on just 2 books. She had to find someone who had grown fruits to discuss it. She could still give it a try. However, fruit trees could not mature in a short period of time. It was quite short for them to bear fruits in a year. Before that, she could only go elsewhere to buy seasonal fruits. Gu Yundong put the book back into her spatial storage. This time, she specially found a corner so that it would be easier to look for fruits again. Then, she picked up the bag of pears again and left. She had to test something and see if there was a market. However, when she went out, she realized that it was already very late. Dong Shilan was already cooking dinner in the kitchen. She paused. One guess we'll have to wait until tomorrow. Gu Yundong decided to prepare the things first. She found 2 pieces of bamboo in the courtyard and started to peel them with a knife. It did not take long for it to be cut into more than 10 small wooden sticks. Gu Yunshu saw it and hurriedly ran over to ask, "Eldest sister, why are you cutting the wooden sticks?" "You'll know tomorrow." Not only did Gu Yundong cut the wooden sticks, but she also dug out many molds of various shapes. This time, even Gu Yunka and the Zheng siblings were extremely curious. They gathered around her and watched seriously. When Gu Yundong was done, she realized that there was a circle of children around her, including Madame Yang. She laughed and put the things away. "What are you all doing?" "Auntie is busy in the kitchen." "Aren't you going to help?" The children instantly dispersed. After dinner, the sky turned dark. Shao, Qingyuan and Lu Wei still hadn't returned. Luan had returned from the county city, but he looked listless and uncomfortable. Gu Yundong guessed that he might have been scolded. Madame Fang and her daughter picked wild vegetables for another day and returned empty-handed. Gu Yundong wanted to laugh, but she had clearly underestimated the stubbornness of the mother and daughter. The next morning, when she went out to the homestead to look at the house that was being built, she saw them at the foot of the mountain again. Gu Yundong was speechless. Did the two of you pluck all the wild vegetables at the foot of the mountain? Feng Danning was beside her, looking energetic. At this rate, we'll be able to set up the beams soon. When you're free, go to Sixth Grandfather's place and ask him to pick a good day for you. The start date of construction was chosen by Sixth Master. He was considered the most senior elder in Yongfu village now. Gu Yundong nodded as he walked into the house. Can one dig a well in this house? After you told me 2 days ago, one got someone to take a look. The front yard won't do. But there's a spring in the backyard that can be dug out. Shall one show you? Okay. Feng Danning brought her to the backyard. There was a place surrounded by wooden planks, probably to mark it. This is it. Gu Yundong looked at the location. It was actually not very good. However, it was better to have a spring than nothing. There was no need to specially get water from the well. It was much more convenient to cook and wash clothes. After looking at the house, Gu Yundong returned to the Xing family. There was no one in the courtyard, so the children followed Luan to walk the horses. Madame Dong was brewing medicine in the kitchen. When she saw her return, she carried the medicine jar to the next room to see Xing Hu. Gu Yundong thought of the things she had prepared yesterday and immediately ran to his room. She took out the pears and wooden sticks and went straight to the kitchen. She washed a few pears, peeled them, and cut them into pieces. Then, she used gauze to squeeze out the juice. Chapter 124, Shao Qingyuan is back. It was a pity that she did not have a juicer. Otherwise, she would not be so tired. After squeezing the pears dry and filtering them twice until there was no residue left, she placed them aside as a backup. Then, she started a fire and took out rock sugar and malt sugar. Add pear juice and rock sugar to the pot. Boil it and add a certain amount of malt sugar. The temperature had to be very high. Gu Yundong's forehead was already drenched in sweat. After boiling it for a long time and seeing that it was about time, she slowly poured it into the mold she had made last night. Afraid that she would not be able to take it out if it stuck, she specially applied a thin layer of oil paper under the mold. Then, she took out a small wooden stick. This wooden stick had been cut extremely thin by her, and it was not much different from the kind of wooden stick used for lollipops. When everything was done, there was a chatter at the door. Then, Gu Yung's childish voice could be heard. It smells so good. Eldest sister made food. After saying that, she ran towards the kitchen and quickly saw the candy on the table. The little girl's eyes lit up. Big sister, what is this? Fruit candy, Gu Yundong said with a smile. She stopped her small figure. You can't eat it yet. Wait until it's cold and solid. Actually, it was best to put it in the fridge for a few hours, but the conditions here did not allow it. However, the temperature was low now, so they did not have to wait too long. Gu Yunka clicked her tongue and looked at her eagerly. Then I'll help eldest sister keep an eye on her. Alright, just watch. The young lady insisted on torturing herself, so Gu Yundong had no choice. But she was very obedient. If she said she would not eat it, she would not eat it. Gu Yundong was very assured. After a while, the other children came in. Even Luan sniffed as he walked to the kitchen. What's that smell? It's sweet. Candy, Gu Yunka said. When she saw Luan reaching out to take it, she immediately glared at him angrily. Eldest sister said that you can't eat it yet. I'm just looking. Luan defended himself. The little girl put her hands on her hips. You're clumsy. You can't touch it. Luan felt that he had been discriminated against by the little girl. He wanted to defend himself, but Gu Yunshu and the Xing siblings were already standing on the side with the little girl, guarding against him. Luan was speechless. After all, he was the young master's servant. Why did they act like he had never seen the world? Gu Yundong had already left the kitchen. She took off her apron and went to Sixth Master's house. Since she was free today, she decided to pick a date first. She still had to make a trip to the county tomorrow. Sixth grandfather's house was not far from the village chief's house. He was already 78 years old. In this era, there were very few people with a high lifespan. Everyone said that Sixth great-grandfather was blessed and that his children were filial. Now, he was also respected in the village. Sixth grandfather knew that it was inconvenient for them to live in someone else's house now, so they were in a hurry to move into the new house. Therefore, when choosing a date, he tried his best to choose the nearest one. Gu Yundong took the date and thanked him. She left a bag of soft pastries for Sixth Master before leaving happily. Unexpectedly, as soon as she went out, she saw Madame Fang and her daughter walking home. Beside them was Madame Zhou, whose expression was very ugly. Gu Yundong had sharp ears and eyes. She could vaguely hear Madame Zhou's dissatisfied voice. It's not like we don't have vegetables at home. Even if you want to eat wild vegetables, you can go alone. Why do you have to surround the foot of the mountain all day? Your chickens have all run out, and the pigs are so hungry that they keep crying. Why? Don't you want to live a good life? Gu Yundong suppressed his laughter and strode back. Unexpectedly, she heard Lu Wei's exaggerated voice the moment she reached the Xing family's door. Madame Fang and her daughter were too lucky. They had just left, but Shao Qingyuan and Lu Wei were already back. Chapter 125, Inquiring about something. Gu Yundong could not help but quicken his pace. The Xing family's door opened, revealing Madame Dong's anxious expression. Yundong, you're back? What happened? Madame Dong sighed. Qingyuan was injured. I'll bring him some medicine. Injured? Gu Yundong turned around and followed Madame Dong into Shao Qingyuan's house. As soon as she entered, Gu Yundong could not help but widen her eyes and gasp. It seemed like they had gained a lot in the mountains these past few days. Not only were there wild chickens and rabbits in the courtyard, but there were also 2 silly roe deers and a tiger. They had really caught a tiger. Could Shao Qingyuan have been seriously injured by such a big tiger? Gu Yundong retracted his gaze and hurried into the inner room. Auntie, if he's injured, you should find a doctor. She stopped mid-sentence and met Shao Qingyuan's clear eyes. After not seeing each other for a few days, Shao Qingyuan seemed to have lost a lot of weight. His clothes were tattered and he looked a little disheveled. However, his eyes were still as bright as before. No, it felt more aggressive than before. Aggressive. Gu Yundong blinked. When she looked again, Shao Qingyuan's eyes had become cold and indifferent again. Had she seen wrongly just now? Before she had time to think about it, Lu Wei's chattering voice had already sounded. I also asked him to see a doctor. I know Dr. Zhong from the county city's Onren clinic. He's skilled in medicine and will definitely be able to heal you. Don't force yourself. I know it's my fault this time. If it weren't for saving me, you wouldn't have been injured. I promise that next time, 111 obediently stay on the tree and won't come down again. There won't be a next time. Shao Qingyuan glanced at him. Lu Wei choked for a moment and waved his hand after a while. We'll talk about this later. Let's go see a doctor first. It's just a small injury. There's no need. Only then did Gu Yundong see clearly where Shao Qingyuan was injured. There was blood on his shoulder, but fortunately, it did not look very deep. Looking at him standing there in high spirits, his life was definitely not in danger. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief. Shao Qingyuan glanced at her discreetly and smiled. He said to Lu Wei, go boil water. 111 Go back to my room to apply the medicine. This wasn't the first time Shao Qingyuan had been injured. His family had prepared trauma medicine. The medicine that Madame Dong had brought was for Zheng Hu. It was useless to him. Seeing that he couldn't persuade him, Lu Wei felt a little vexed and guilty. He sighed and shouted at Luan, have you boiled the hot water? Your young master stinks. Yundong had wanted to walk to his side and ask about the situation when they entered the mountain, but she immediately took a step back when she heard this. Lu Wei, you're too obvious, aren't you? You actually dare to despise my peerless handsomeness? He snorted and deliberately walked towards Yundong. Yundong picked up a stick and pointed it at him. Stop, stop. Talk from this distance. Lu Wei was so angry that his nose was crooked. Fortunately, Luan ran over at this moment to let him take a shower. Seeing this, Yundong returned to the Zheng family with Dong Xilan. When they were done packing, Yundong came over. Shao Qingyuan was still wearing the same tattered coat. Yundong frowned. He and Lu Wei were both eating porridge while Luan was preparing the horse. It seemed like they would be leaving soon. Yundong immediately sat at the side and asked Lu Wei, want to ask you something. Chapter 126, Who is Brother Qin? You want to ask me for something? Lu Wei glanced at her, then turned around with the bowl of porridge in his hand with his back facing her. Humph, back then, you were full of disdain for me. Now, you want to ask me questions just like that? Are we very close? The corners of Yundong's mouth twitched. So be it. She turned her head and spoke to Shao Qingyuan. There's a lot of prey. How you plan to deal with them? Shao Qingyuan put down the bowl and said, leave these pheasants and wild ducks at home to eat. Pack them up and keep them. Young Master Lu bought that big worm. As for the 2 roe deers, one is for young Master Lu to bring back and the other is for us to keep at home. Great. It just so happens that I haven't eaten roe deer meat before. Yundong's eyes lit up. Now, Shao Qingyuan's food was brought over by the Zheng family. When he said that he keep the meat at home to eat, he actually meant that he would stay at the Zheng family's house and eat together. However, before he could finish speaking, Lu Wei suddenly turned around and almost threw out the porridge in his hand. No, you have to give me both the roe deers. I specially followed you into the mountains to hunt for that roe deer. I prepared that for Brother Qin. Yundong was still talking to Shao Qingyuan. How much money did you sell the tiger for? Let me tell you, this thing is full of treasures and is very valuable. It's not cheap to sell. Don't be cheated by young Master Lu. Shao Qingyuan smiled and nodded. This tiger skin is incomplete. There are several wounds on its body, and its fur color is not very pure. The price is a little low. The tiger bone and whip were sold according to the purchase price of the pharmacy. In addition, there's tiger meat. Did the 2 of you hear me? Lu Wei suddenly placed the bowl on the table. We're talking about the roe deer. One said that I want both roe deers. Also, Yundong, what kind of person do you think one am? Would one go and cheat Shao Qingyuan? He saved me. Am one that kind of ungrateful person? Who is Brother Qin? Yundong suddenly asked. Lu Wei subconsciously replied, Brother Qin is an impressive figure. He was a scholar at 3 years old and a martial artist at 5 years old. He knows everything in the world. He's also the youngest top scholar in this dynasty. When he was 18 years old, he was appointed as the top scholar by the late emperor. Lu Wei suddenly shut up and snorted. Why are you asking this? Yundong said, I'm just curious. Seeing that you value Brother Qin so much and insist on keeping both roe deers for him, he should be an impressive person. Listening to you, it's true. I didn't expect young Master Lu to know such a person. Of course. We're very close. Although Brother Qin might not remember him, he was definitely going to call him Brother Qin. Since he's the top scholar, shouldn't he be an official in the capital? Young Master Lu, are you sending the roe deers to the capital? Lu Wei shook his head. He's not an official in the capital. He's in Fengkai County now. In Fengkai County? What for? Lu Wei stopped halfway and snorted again. Why are you asking so many questions? Anyway, it has nothing to do with you. By the way, didn't you say that you wanted to ask me about something? What is it? Ask me. I'll tell you what one know. Gu Yundong resisted the urge to roll her eyes. Are you a pig? Why do you keep snorting? However, seeing that it was getting late, Lu Wei and the others should be leaving in a while. Anyway, he was no longer as awkward as before. I want to ask about the school in the county. However, Lu Wei suddenly stood up and knocked over the stool behind him. Chapter 127, School is Settled. Gu Yundong was shocked by him. She looked up and saw his furious expression. One was wondering why you kept asking me about Brother Qin. It turns out that you're waiting here. You also want your brother to enter Brother Qin's school, right? Gu Yundong was dumbfounded at first, but then her eyes lit up. So this Brother Qin opened a school in Fengkai County. Wait a minute, Lu Wei just said that he was the top scholar, right? From the way he addressed him, that guy didn't sound very old. Gu Yundong looked at Lu Wei with a smile. Don't be agitated, don't be agitated. Sit down and calm down. Tell me about Brother Qin's school. Lu Wei was stunned. He looked at her for a long time and suddenly realized that he had confessed. He was instantly annoyed. He looked at Gu Yundong accusingly. I don't know what you're talking about. Hey, are you looking for a fight again? Shao Qingyuan had already finished his porridge and could hear their conversation clearly. He wiped his mouth and said to Gu Yundong, leave the 2 roe deers at home to eat. It's easy to keep them in this weather. See if you can figure out how to make more dishes with the deer meat. Lu Wei almost fainted from anger. He turned to look at Shao Qingyuan angrily. The latter turned sideways and aimed his injured shoulder at him. Lu Wei immediately became listless. He took a deep breath and told himself that this guy was his savior. He could not be ungrateful. After slowly calming down for a while, he said, forget it, forget it. It's not a secret anyway. Everyone in the county knows. Only people in remote places like you don't know anything. Gu Yundong raised his eyebrows. Go ahead. Brother Qin's original name was Qin Wenzheng. After he became the top scholar at the age of 18, he became an official in the Hanlin Academy in the capital. He was young and energetic, and he was also smart. He was full of ambition and wanted to make a contribution to the country and the people. But the late emperor, Lu Wei, paused. There was no need to elaborate. Everyone knew. The late emperor was muddle-headed and tyrannical. It was not easy for you to achieve results. Many loyal officials were depressed and even beheaded. In the beginning, Qin Wenzheng was also suppressed everywhere. Fortunately, his position was not high and he did not have any backing or real power. In the eyes of those in high positions, he was not a threat. Although someone like him could easily become a pawn for others to use, Qin Wenzheng still had a brain. He had safely dodged several dangerous situations. It was also because of this that he no longer charged forward. After that, for some reason, Qin Wenzheng suddenly resigned from his post and traveled far and wide with his wife. In the end, they stopped at Fengkai County. Others didn't know the reason for his sudden resignation, but Lu Wei's family had connections. It was said that Qin Wenzheng had met the crown prince, who was now the new emperor, before he resigned. No one knew what they had discussed. Lu Wei lowered his voice. Let me tell you, now that the new emperor has ascended the throne, a capable person like Brother Qin will probably be summoned back to the capital soon. Therefore, it's impossible for you to send your brother to study in his school. How can he still accept students at this juncture, right? Oh. Gu Yundong was enlightened. She looked as if he had a point. However, in the next moment, her voice changed and she asked with a smile, then why are you giving him the roe deer? Isn't it to enter his school? Chapter 128, Madame Fang wants to see young Master Lu Wei realized that this woman was not easy to deceive at all. She was too uncute. He sat back down angrily. I'm friends with him, aren't one? Seeing that he might be returning to the capital, I'm sending him some delicious food. Besides, I'm already so old. How can one enter his school? Gu Yundong nodded. Isn't that just nice? You have a relationship with him, and one have a relationship with you. Then do me a favor and talk to him nicely. How about he accept my brother as his student? Didn't I say that I know, but didn't you say that it's possible for him to return to the capital? It's just a possibility. You're not sure yet. Of course, even if he really wants to return to the capital, he used to be the top scholar in the examination. His knowledge must be very good. It's worth it for my brother to be his student for a day or a month, right? Lu Wei's eyes widened. F***ck, 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 F***ck. Could this woman read his mind? How did she say what he was thinking? Gu Yundong looked at him with a smile. Beside him, Shao Qingyuan tilted his shoulder, Lu Wei held his chest. Why was he so kind? If he was as heartless as Peng Zhongfei, he wouldn't have to care about this adulterous couple. After a moment of silence, he finally gritted his teeth fiercely. He lowered his head and muttered, "What friendship? One don't have any friendship with Brother Qin. Otherwise, why would I send roe deer meat so that my brother can enter his family's school?" Cough cough, Gu Yundong choked on her own saliva. Lu Wei flew into a rage out of humiliation. Why? Do you think it's so easy to enter his school? The young master of the county magistrate's family wanted to learn from him, but was rejected. He didn't give him any face at all, okay? Brother Qin has his own way of accepting students. It's not useful just because you're rich and powerful. It's also not based on talent and looks. It's not easy to enter, okay? Could it be that the roe deer meat? Gu Yundong guessed softly. You're smart. Gu Yundong was speechless. Why did she feel that this reason was even more unreliable? However, Lu Wei lowered his voice mysteriously and said, "This is a secret that one deduced myself. I've asked someone to keep an eye on the Qin family for a long time. I realized that the servants of the Qin family often go to buy wild animals. Last time, Brother Qin took in a student because that student's father gave him a large piece of roe deer leg. I promised my father that I would definitely send my brother to his school. That's why one entered the mountains fearlessly. Do you think it's easy for me? So you're not allowed to snatch it from me." Gu Yundong felt that it was even more unreliable, especially when Lu Wei said that he had deduced it. The credibility was zero. When are you sending the roe deer to his house? In a minute, while it's fresh. Gu Yundong smiled. Bring me along. Not a chance. Gu Yundong analyzed for him. Look, you want to bring 2 roe deers and a tiger to the county city. Oh, and the few of you. That carriage will definitely not be enough. 111 lend mine to you. Besides, I guarantee that I won't say a word when I go. I'm just going to see the world and won't fight with you for the spot. Besides, one might be able to help you. Lu Wei frowned. Why did she sound so reasonable every time she spoke? That's fine. His stance could be said to be very unstable. Shao Qingyuan saw that they were done talking. Let's go then. As soon as she finished speaking, Dong Xiulan suddenly came over from next door. She looked at Lu Wei and said, "Sister-in-law Fang is here. She wants to see young Master Lu." Chapter 129, So What If I Hit You? Lu Wei was confused. Sister-in-law Fang? Who? It's the mother and daughter who brought you to Yongfu village, Gu Yundong said. This person's memory was really bad. Lu Wei suddenly reacted. It's them. Then let them come over. Dong Xiulan was in a difficult position. She hesitated for a moment before saying, "They said they don't dare." That was why she went to the Zhang family and waited for young Master Lu there. Lu Wei frowned. Don't dare what? Don't dare to see me? They don't dare to see me. Shao Qingyuan said. Lu Wei blinked. Why, halfway through, he remembered. Oh, I know. Back then, they seemed to have said that you were a wolf cub and were very scary. Gu Yundong glared at him fiercely. Don't speak if you don't know how to speak. You're the wolf cub. Shao Qingyuan saw her small actions and couldn't help but smile. He was in a good mood. Lu Wei, on the other hand, was baffled by the glare. He said with a dumbfounded expression, I didn't say anything. But then again, why do they call you a wolf cub? One don't think you're scary at all. TSK, forget it. Since they don't dare to come, don't come. I'm busy. I won't see them. In any case, they were not familiar with each other, so it was probably nothing important. Gu Yundong wanted to laugh. How many times had Madame Fang and her daughter been back and forth at the foot of the mountain? Previously, they had been brought home by Madame Zhou. When they heard that Shao Qingyuan and the others were back, they immediately ran over. Their spirit was really admirable. Dong Xilan went back. She was just passing on the message. She wasn't familiar with young Master Lu, so she naturally wouldn't say anything. Lu Wei immediately threw Madame Fang and her daughter to the back of his mind and began to urge Gu Yundong. It's getting late. Let's set off now. Hurry back and prepare the carriage. Well, leave immediately. All right, let's make things clear first. Javili carriage is meant for people. Without waiting for Lu Wei to retort, she continued, my carriage is newly bought. If you put the tiger and roe deer inside, what if my horse is frightened because it hasn't been trained? Lu Wei could only nod when he heard that. Only then did Gu Yundong leave the Shao family and return to the Xing family. Unexpectedly, Madame Fang and her daughter did not leave. Chen Yulan immediately stood up when she saw Gu Yundong. She walked up to her and asked, why doesn't young Master Lu want to see us? How would one know? Gu Yundong looked puzzled. Did you say something to young Master Lu? Did you say something bad about us? You were in the Shao family just now, right? One couldn't tell, Gu Yundong. In order to get close to young Master Lu, you're not even afraid of the wolf cub. Gu Yundong looked at her coldly. Say that again. You act like you don't care about anything on the surface, but in fact, aren't you trying to climb up the social ladder? When you saw that young Master Lu was rich, you waited eagerly. You didn't even care about avoiding suspicion. As soon as he came back, you stuck to him. Slap. Gu Yundong raised her hand and slapped her. Madame Fang had been watching coldly from the sidelines. When she saw this, she rushed over and pulled Chen Yulan back. Then, she looked at Gu Yundong in shock. How dare you hit someone? So what if one hit you? Your mouth is so dirty. You should wash it properly. Gu Yundong took a step closer. Do you think that everyone has the same thoughts as you? Who is the person who has been wandering around the foot of the mountain for 2 days? Do you think that everyone is blind and can't see clearly? Who in the entire village doesn't watch you and your daughter make a fool of yourselves? If it weren't for the village chief, you would have been spat to death. Chapter 130, Sudden Despair, 2. Zhao Ritian waved his hand, and decided to settle this matter quickly. When the 5 people opposite heard Zhao Rishan's words, they immediately revealed happy expressions. They knew that this matter had finally been resolved. However, just as the 5 of them were about to leave, a sudden change happened. Howl. Suddenly, a roar came from behind the 5 of them. The sudden sound frightened the 5 people because they were very familiar with that cry. That cry was completely a zombie's cry. The 5 of them hurriedly turned around, and were shocked to see that their boss had turned into a zombie. At this moment, their boss still had an arrow stuck in his head, but it did not affect the other party's activities. After the other party saw the 5 of them, he pounced on them. Faced with this situation, the other 5 people had never expected to see something like this. Especially shocking was their boss, who suddenly turned into a zombie and pounced over. This development immediately frightened the 5 people. All of them wanted to escape quickly. Unfortunately, the boss didn't become completely stiff after turning into a zombie. He quickly pounced on one of them. Then, they heard a series of tearing sounds. The young man who was pounced on was instantly bitten by the zombie boss. Quickly pull away from the other party. No, you can't pull away. He will be infected if it's already bitten him. At this moment, the others immediately reacted. A few of them wanted to pull away from the other party, but when they thought that the other party had already been bitten, they completely gave up on this idea. What are you looking at? Run quickly. Let's run in all directions. Run in all directions. Hurry. Upon hearing this sudden sentence, the remaining 4 people instantly ran in 4 directions. Now that a zombie had appeared in this place, it was completely unsafe. Therefore, they could not stay here. The most important thing was to leave this place first. Just as Zhao was about to leave with his sister, he suddenly realized that the 2 people who had been shot by his sister had also gotten up. After they got up, they charged towards Zhao and his companion. They opened their bloody mouths, looking extremely ferocious. It was as if they were going to take revenge on Zhao and the other person for the previous hatred and conflicts. Seeing the 2 zombies rushing over, Zhao did not escape immediately. Instead, he gritted his teeth and raised his shield, knocking one of the zombies to the ground. Quick, go and help my sister. I'll deal with this zombie, Zhao hurriedly said to Chu Xiu. At the same time, he held his shield and kept hitting the zombie that he had knocked to the ground. Bang! 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 A crazy smashing sound rang out. Zhao ruthlessly smashed the zombie on the ground, not letting it move at all. At the same time, Zhao sister also raised her bow and shot the calf of the zombie opposite her. Soon, the zombie fell to the ground. Clearly, she knew very well how to deal with such zombies. They had to have dealt with many other zombies before, which was why they were so experienced. I'll control his movements. You think of a way to smash his head. Zhao sister quickly revealed her plan. They had dealt with this kind of zombie before. They knew that as long as they smashed their heads, they could get rid of the zombie in front of them. As long as they attacked fast enough, they could completely finish off the 3 zombies quickly. When Chu Xiu heard this, he did not do anything. Instead, he just watched calmly. When Sister Zhao saw Chu Xiu's actions, she immediately felt that something was amiss. However, she had no room to keep talking and persuade him. Instead, she hurriedly took out a hammer from her backpack. She walked past Chu Xiu and smashed the hammer in her hand on the zombie's head. Immediately, blood splattered. Soon, after a series of crazy beatings, the zombie was finally killed completely. Chu Xiu could tell that the other party had specially thought of a way to flip the zombie's body so that the back of its head was facing the sky. The other party was desperately beating the back of the zombie's head into pieces. At this moment, Zhao had also finished off the other zombie using the shield in his hand to smash the back of the zombie's head into pieces. Clearly, the 2 of them had already discovered the zombie's weakness, so they attacked very decisively and ruthlessly without any hesitation. After his sister intercepted the 2 zombies, Zhao and his sister hurriedly looked at the last zombie. However, at this moment, something even worse happened. Help! No, no! Why are there so many zombies here? Where did they come from? The 4 people who had escaped previously actually ran back one by one. However, the 4 of them were in a very bad state because 2 of them were actually holding each other's arms and necks. It was obvious that they were injured. In addition, they could completely understand what the other party had said earlier. The other party had been bitten by a zombie. Stop following us. You've all been bitten by zombies. You'll definitely become a zombie. Do a good deed and lure the zombies away. The other 2 young men shouted angrily at the 2 people who had been bitten. In their opinion, since he had already been bitten, he should not continue to follow them. They might as well act honorably and sacrifice themselves to lure the 2 zombies away. That way, the other two could be safe. Don't even think that he'll die alone. Don't even think about surviving on your own. We must die together. The eyes of the two young men who were bitten were also red. They didn't care at all, and couldn't help but roar angrily. The argument between the two immediately attracted the attention of the other zombies. Soon, a large number of zombies rushed over from all directions. Clearly, they were attracted by these four people. After seeing the current situation, Zhao Ritian and his sister looked at the current situation in despair. If there were only a few zombies coming at them, they would have the confidence to think of a way to escape, but the zombies' numbers were already too terrifying. The current number was no longer that simple. It was no longer a question of whether they could escape, but a question of whether they could keep their corpses intact. Sister, it looks like this is the end of us. It looks like we have no way of leaving this place, Zhao Ritian said helplessly. Although he said that there was no way, his eyes were filled with unwillingness. Although Sister Zhao Ritian did not say anything, a very sad expression appeared on her face. She had not expected that they would encounter such a thing when they were clearly about to leave this place. It seemed that this was their fate. All right, we're all going to die here next. What a pity. I've never touched a girl's hand in my life, Zhao Ritian said with some distress. Now, he felt that he was really regretful. However, at this moment, he suddenly saw Chu Xiu walking in. It indeed made him feel a little strange. Hey, brother, why aren't you afraid at all? Could it be that you've already ignored life and death? At that moment, he was a little puzzled. This was because Chu Xiu did not look like someone who was facing death at all. Instead, he looked like he was on an outing. It's very simple, because these zombies are not a problem for me, Chu Xiu replied very calmly. Brother, your mental fortitude is really good. You can actually make such a cold joke at this time, Zhao Ritian said speechlessly. He did not expect Chu Xiu to be so good at making cold jokes. Now, he felt that there was indeed something wrong with Chu Xiu's brain. Since he could still say such words at a time like this, he only felt that it was a little ridiculous. Looking at the huge number of zombies rushing towards them, Zhao Ritian suddenly wanted to smoke a cigarette. This was because the scene in front of him was very similar to the scenes in movies. The male lead was facing a large group of zombies as he smoked calmly and bravely faced this group of zombies. Chapter 131. Familiar figure. Madame Fang took a step back and looked up to see Chen Liang walking out. She immediately started crying. Sister-in-law, you're poking at my heart. I've been Brother Tian's widow for so many years and rarely left the house. One didn't expect to hear you say this. I might as well die. Madame Zhou sneered. Go back to your house and cry. Chen Liang frowned and walked out from behind Madame Zhou. All right, you're her sister-in-law. What are you saying? Yes, one don't know how to speak. She didn't do anything wrong. 111 leave. Madame Zhou glared at Chen Liang fiercely before turning around and returning to her room. Chen Liang frowned even more and looked at Madame Fang impatiently. Why didn't he feel that Madame Fang was so unreasonable in the past? Don't cry anymore. Your sister-in-law has been in a bad mood for the past 2 days. Don't take what she said to heart. Go back first. Uncle, you also think that what I did was wrong, right? One really don't have any other intentions. It's just that young Master Liu's family is in the county city. They have a big family and power. In the future, when Yulan marries into the Wu family, the Wu family will also want to do some small business in the county city. If we can build a relationship with young Master Lu, it will be helpful to the Wu family. Yulan will also have a status in the Wu family. Chen Liang sighed. All right, I understand. You guys can go home first. Seeing that he did not believe her, Madame Fang was a little anxious. However, Chen Liang looked like he was unwilling to say more. She could only bite her lip and bring Chen Yulan home. At this moment, Yundong had long forgotten about the mother and daughter and had already prepared the carriage. On the other side, the big tiger and roe deer had already been loaded into Lu Wei's carriage. However, Luan was a coward. Even if it was the tiger's corpse, he was still very afraid. Therefore, he could only let Shao Qingyuan drive the carriage. Luan ran to Gu Yundong's side and jumped into the carriage. As a result, only Gu Yundong and Lu Wei were left in the carriage. Gu Yundong was speechless. Lu Wei, when the carriage left the village, Gu Yundong suddenly shouted, "Luan, come in. 111 drive the carriage." Luan was so frightened that he subconsciously entered the carriage. Gu Yundong took the reins and sat on the shaft, swaying. Lu Wei's face was ashen. He was despised again. Gu Yundong drove the carriage behind Shao Qingyuan. Her driving skills were not very good. Shao Qingyuan saw that there was still time and slowed down slightly. When they arrived at the county city, the surroundings immediately became lively. Wind Chaser was a good horse. He was used to following behind Shao Qingyuan's carriage and did not need Gu Yundong to exert much effort. Qin Wenshang's school was in the east of the city. Lu Wei had to return to the Lu residence to bring his brother over first. Unexpectedly, when they were about to reach the Lu residence, Gu Yundong suddenly saw a familiar figure flash past. She was suddenly stunned. She sat up straight and turned around. At the next moment, she grabbed the reins and jumped down from the shaft. "Luan, come out and drive. One have something on. I'll be back in a while." With that, he ran away. Lu Wei lifted the curtain of the carriage and only had time to see her back view. Shao Qingyuan, who was in front, also heard it. He subconsciously stopped the carriage and jumped down, wanting to chase after her. She was stopped by Lu Wei. She said she'll be back in a while. "Anyway, I've already told her the address of Brother Qin's school. She'll find it." Lu Wei felt that since she was in such a hurry, she definitely wanted to go to the toilet. Chapter 132, It's Gu Dajiang. But Gu Yundong had already chased after the familiar figure in front of her and turned into another street. The person in front walked very quickly. Gu Yundong could only call out to him, "Gu Dajiang, Gu Dajiang." However, that person did not react at all. In the blink of an eye, he entered an alley. Gu Yundong hastened his pace, afraid that the wrong person would disappear. However, this street was a little congested. There were even stalls in front. Gu Yundong was anxious and could not care less. She directly passed through the stall. She thought that she would be able to jump over, but the stall owner suddenly stood up. Gu Yundong avoided her, but she did not avoid the basket on the ground. The basket fell, and Gu Yundong could vaguely feel the things inside fall out. She did not even have time to take a look. She only said to the stall owner, "I'm sorry, big sister. 111 come back and compensate you later." As soon as she finished speaking, she turned into the alley. Seeing that the person in front of him had not disappeared, Gu Yundong finally heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly ran forward. "Gu Dajiang, father, you..." That person turned around and Gu Yundong choked on her words. No. It wasn't Gu Dajiang. She had recognized the wrong person. That's right. This is a small county city under the Xian'er prefecture. The probability of meeting Gu Dajiang is too low. How could it be him? However, this person's side profile was too similar. That person looked at Gu Yundong in confusion. "Miss, what's the matter?" "If there's nothing else, I'm leaving. I'm on my way." "I'm sorry, I mistook you for someone else." Gu Yundong smiled apologetically. After watching the person walk away, she let out a sigh of relief and patted her face. "It doesn't matter. We'll find him one day." "Right, that vendor." Gu Yundong hurried back to the basket that she had knocked over earlier. Only then did she see what was in the basket. It was oranges. More than half of the oranges had fallen to the ground. The couple who sold them were squatting on the ground to pick them up. Gu Yundong quickly picked the oranges up and lowered her head to apologize. "I'm sorry. I ran in a hurry just now and knocked over your basket. Count how many of them are broken. I'll compensate. No, no need. No, it's not broken. The man at the side immediately waved his hand and shook his head repeatedly. Yundong looked up and met the man's face. He was stunned. You are, he looked familiar. However, the man suddenly lowered his head and turned slightly to avoid her gaze. Yundong frowned and looked at the woman beside him. Then, she came to a realization. It's you. Zhuangzi's parents had seen him once, so they almost didn't recognize him. Zhuangzi's father was called Dajiang, and his mother was called Yi. According to Dong Zuyan, this couple was very timid. It seemed that they had encountered something in the past. Now, they did not dare to fight or snatch anything. They would retreat when they could. She did not know how these two cowards raised their children. Her son had become a rogue, and her daughter was also smart. No wonder when she had asked the 4 families to compensate her, the Hu family had pestered them endlessly, but this family had immediately nodded and said that there was not enough money. They had obediently gone to gather money. They were so obedient that Yundong felt like he was bullying an honest person. Miss Gu, the oranges aren't broken. Let's just wipe them. If you have something to do, go ahead, He said softly. In the eyes of the couple, Yundong was a little scary. After all, even someone like Hu Liang could not do well in her hands. Not only was he beaten up, but he also lost money. Chapter 133, Brother Qin. Take it for a moment, Yundong felt that she might be a devil. The corners of her mouth couldn't help but twitch. She placed the oranges in her hand into the basket. Then, she narrowed her eyes. She hadn't looked carefully just now, but now, she noticed that the oranges in the basket were all plump and round. The skin was yellow and orange, and the shape was even. They were arranged neatly in the basket and looked indescribably beautiful. Did you plant this? Yundong asked. He was stunned for a moment before nodding. We planted them. There aren't many of them. The fruits this year are quite good, so we chose this place to sell them. Do you want to eat them? These oranges are delicious. Yundong nodded. He smiled and immediately peeled the orange for her. Yundong looked at the orange in her hand. It was thin and juicy. After tasting a piece, her eyes lit up. It was really delicious. It was natural and unpolluted. It was even sweeter than the oranges in her space. She looked at the couple in surprise. She did not expect them to have such ability. Rubbing her chin, Yundong wondered if she should trick the two of them into helping her plant the orchard. She was in need of experienced manpower. She would ask the village chief about their past. If it was appropriate, she could get busy. Yundong ate an entire orange in a few bites and then picked a few more from the basket. He and Dajiang looked at each other. They were both worried, but they did not dare to say anything or ask anything. After Yundong picked 4 or 5, he stopped, looked up, and said, I'll take these first. Can you sell the remaining 20 or so and bring them back to Yongfu village for me? I don't have anything to pack and can't take them. I'll pay the money to you when one return to the village later, all right? Dajiang blurted out, you want to pay? Yundong blinked. Don't one have to pay for things? No, did they think that she was a freeloader? Dajiang shook his head repeatedly. No. That's not what I meant. Yundong held his forehead. This expression was simply exposing himself. Seeing that it was getting late, she bade them farewell. Then it's settled. I still have something to do, so I'll leave first. She came and left in a hurry. Carrying a few oranges, she went straight to Qin Wensheng's school. She was panting after running for so long. But before she could reach her destination, she saw Shao Qingyuan and Luan walking over with the carriage. As for Lu Wei, he followed behind the carriage dejectedly, looking like he had nothing to live for. Was this a failure? And why was he out so quickly? Where was his brother? Didn't he say that he would go to the Lu residence to pick up his brother first? According to Gu Yundong's speculation, it would take at least an hour for Lu Wei and the others to return to the Lu residence to pick up their younger brother and then go to Qin Wenzheng's school to deliver the roe deer meat, right? At the very least, if Lu Wei nagged seriously, it would definitely take more than an hour. But how long had it been? Gu Yundong walked over and distributed the oranges in his hand to Shao, Qingyuan and Luan. He asked softly, is his brother Qin unwilling to accept his brother as a student? No, he isn't, Shao Qingyuan said. Gu Yundong's eyes widened. He actually accepted it? But, she pointed at Lu Wei in surprise. Then why does he look like the sky is falling? Look, look, look. At this moment, he was knocking his head against the carriage. Luan was so frightened that he almost threw the orange away to save him. Chapter 134, Bring back the roe deer. Before Shao Qingyuan could answer, Lu Wei was already standing in front of Gu Yundong. His eyes were wide open, and his lips were pursed tightly. He panted heavily, looking furious. Gu Yundong blinked and blinked again. Wasn't it your wish to accept your brother? But what does that have to do with me? Huh? Gu Yundong replied. Lu Wei was already exasperated. Brother Qin accepted my brother not because I risked my life to go deep into the mountains to hunt those 2 roe deers, but because he owes my family a favor. Gu Yundong was enlightened. So, even if you didn't give him the roe deer, he would still accept your brother, right? That's right. His father had lied to him. This definitely wasn't his biological father. No. Gu Yundong narrowed his eyes and glanced at the carriage behind him. He asked, then, can you give me 2 roe deers? I've already given them to Brother Qin. Since those 2 roe deers are useless, why did you give them away? Gu Yundong wanted to pry open his brain to see if they were made of paste. Lu Wei also wanted to cry. Do you think I want to? One gave him the 2 roe deers before he told me that he owed my family a favor. Gu Yundong clicked his tongue. As expected of the top scholar at such a young age. He's indeed sinister. That's right. I've already given it away. One can't go back on my word and ask him to take it back, right? Lu Wei used to think that Qin Wenzheng was noble and magnanimous. When the court was in turmoil, he was a very far-sighted gentleman. As expected, he was still inexperienced. Gu Yundong looked at him. Why can't I take it back? He accepted your brother to return the favor. If he accepts the roe deer, it's equivalent to not returning the favor. Let's go and ask him to take it back now. Lu Wei was stunned. This made a lot of sense. He really followed behind Gu Yundong and returned to school. Shao Qingyuan gave his carriage to Luan and quickly followed. The school was not far away. Gu Yundong stood at the door and looked up at the signboard above his head. The corners of his mouth could not help but twitch. Indeed, talented people were willful. They didn't even give a name and just called it a school. The concierge knew Lu Wei. When he saw that Lu Wei had returned, he was a little surprised. He hurriedly went forward and asked, Young Master Lu, is there anything else? Lu Wei looked at Gu Yundong and said hesitantly, I still have something to say. I'm here to look for elder brother Qin. Please inform him. The concierge nodded and quickly ran inside. Lu Wei thought about it and turned to Gu Yundong. You want those 2 roe deers back because you want to send your brother to school, right? But do you think they will still accept your brother if you do that? Bringing them back and sending them over was no different from taking off your pants and farting. It would even leave a bad impression on Brother Qin. Gu Yundong glanced at him. Was he stupid? Did he really think that she was trying to get the 2 roe deers back? She was just finding an excuse to enter the Qin family. When she saw Qin Wenzheng, she would definitely not mention the roe deers. Gu Yundong did not speak. He just waited quietly. The Qin family was not very big, and there were not many servants. The gatekeeper found Qin Wenzhang's servant, and the servant went to the study. Master, young Master Lu is here again. As he spoke, he glanced at the things on Qin Wenzhang's table. It was an arrest warrant. On it was a portrait of a person. That person looked like a real person. It was said that Master had brought him back from the prefectural city. Chapter 135. The painting on the wanted list. Qin Wenzhang was only 26 years old this year, and he was indeed elegant. It was said that back then, the late emperor had hesitated for a long time about choosing him as the top scholar. After all, since ancient times, the top 3 candidates had won with their looks. At that time, the third place was already in his 30s, and he was still a little inferior to this man in terms of looks. Later on, there was still an old minister who argued on the basis of reason. He felt that the scientific examination valued knowledge, and appearance was secondary. Moreover, an 18-year-old top scholar would bring glory to the country, especially it happened during the previous emperor's reign. It could be recorded in history. Perhaps the last sentence had touched the late emperor's heart. He waved his hand on the spot and Qin Wenzhang became the top scholar, the most handsome top scholar in history. Now that a few years had passed, other than the fact that his aura had improved, his appearance had not changed much. Hearing the servant's words, he frowned slightly. He was a little unhappy that he was disturbed. Without looking up, he said that Madam and I are out. He won't see us. After saying that, she lowered her head and looked at the wanted poster on the table. Beside the wanted poster was a piece of paper with a half-drawn picture on it. It was an imitation of the person on the wanted poster, and Qin Wenzhang was holding a charcoal pen in his right hand. Upon hearing this, the servant turned around and ran out of the study. He did not expect to run into Qin Wenzhang's wife, Madame Gu. Madame Gu walked in with a plate of pastries in her hand and smiled. Why didn't I know I was going out? Qin Wenzhang raised his head and waved for the servant to leave quickly. He went over to take the pastries. Why are you here? Aren't you riding with Xian'er? She went to see the 2 roe deer. She was overjoyed to know that there would be wild animals for dinner. Madame Gu walked to his desk and saw the wanted poster. She then looked at the half-drawn map beside it. She laughed. Master is indeed amazing. You've already learned how to draw like this. Qin Wenzhang shook his head. Not yet. I feel like something is missing. Something was wrong. Isn't it good? They're very similar. Madame Gu looked at it carefully for a moment and felt that it was very lifelike. However, Qin Wenzhang was very dissatisfied. He sat at the side and took a sip of tea. He said, Prefecture Magistrate Dai is too petty. No matter how I asked him, he refused to tell me who drew this arrest warrant. He said that he promised that person not to leak any news about him. Madame Gu covered her mouth and laughed. You're the one who taught me to keep my word. Why? Do you want the prefecture magistrate to go back on his word now? He didn't say anything because he wanted to protect the painter's identity so that he wouldn't be in danger. I won't tell anyone. I just want to exchange painting skills with him. Qin Wenzhang picked up the one he had drawn. He paused for a moment, then crumpled it into a ball and threw it away. Madame Gu could not stop him and looked at him helplessly. However, Qin Wenzhang stood up. No, one have to go to the prefectural city. There are only so many painters in the prefectural city. I'll find them eventually. As he spoke, he left the study to call for the servant. The servant had just finished speaking to the concierge when he rushed back. At this moment, Yundong and the rest also saw the concierge who had just returned. Master and Madam just went out. Nonsense. You're the concierge. Wouldn't you know if they went out? Lu Wei was dissatisfied. The concierge said helplessly, they went out the back door. I couldn't see them either. Yundong pulled Lu Wei. Forget it. It seemed like he didn't want to see her anymore. It would be too ugly and repulsive to argue at the door like this. Chapter 136. Someone is looking for you outside. The three of them returned to the carriage. Gu Yundong then asked Lu Wei, "Where's your brother?" "All?" "Oh, he was brought back to the residence by the butler. He said that he had to prepare and would come to school tomorrow." Gu Yundong raised his eyebrows. "Then he'll pretend to be your servant tomorrow and send your brother to school." "How about that?" "How could he say no?" Gu Yundong smiled. Shao Qingyuan nodded. "Good idea." Lu Wei suddenly turned to look at him. "What did Gu Yundong say that made you feel bad?" "You're a man. Can't you have some opinions?" "It's settled then." "Thank you." Gu Yundong happily got into the carriage. Lu Wei sneered. "Have you asked for my opinion?" He walked angrily to Lu An's side. "Let's go back." They parted ways and never saw each other again. Shao Qingyuan also got into Gu Yundong's carriage. He was the one who drove them back. When they were almost at the village entrance, it was Gu Yundong. On the way, he talked about this trip into the mountains. Everything was going smoothly, and Shao Qingyuan's plan didn't go wrong. Lu Wei did indeed have some martial arts skills. Although he wasn't very strong, as long as he didn't encounter any big guys, it wouldn't be a problem. He was the one who got one of the roe deers, but he was too excited and overestimated himself. He did not listen to Shao Qingyuan when they encountered the tiger and was targeted by it. Shao Qingyuan had been injured to save him. Fortunately, he had the crossbow that Gu Yundong had given him. The crossbow could be operated with one hand, and it was very fast. It was much more useful than ordinary bows. It was precisely because of this that the tiger's skin could not be completely preserved. Although Gu Yundong felt that it was a pity, human safety was naturally more important. He comforted him and quickly avoided the topic. Not long after, the carriage entered Yongfu village. When she arrived at the Xing family's house, she found that Dong Xilan had already brought Madame Yang and Xing Yu to clean up the wild animals in the courtyard. Gu Yundong's eyes lit up. Although there are no roe deers, it's not bad to have wild chickens and rabbits. "You like to eat roe deer meat?" Shao Qingyuan asked. "Not really. I just haven't eaten it before." Shao Qingyuan nodded thoughtfully. After driving the carriage to the Xing family, he returned. Gu Yundong went to his homestead to take a look. He did not expect Feng Daneng and the rest to surround him. "Yundong, I heard that Shao Qingyuan hit a big worm. Is that true?" Shao Qingyuan and Lu Wei had brought the tiger back from the back door of the Shao family and gotten into the carriage. They were at the foot of the mountain, so almost no one saw them. No one knew who spread it, but no one believed it. A big tiger. That was a big tiger. Could it be easily caught? Gu Yundong nodded firmly. "It's true." "What about the big tiger?" "He was taken away by young Master Lu." Everyone was very disappointed. They still wanted to see it. They had been excited for the entire afternoon, but who knew that they still didn't have the chance. Gu Yundong went home to help cook dinner after visiting the homestead. Unexpectedly, as soon as she reached the kitchen, she found Miss Gu Yunka sleeping on the table with her head tilted. In front of her was pear candy. Oh no, she had forgotten about this. When the little girl heard the sound, she opened her eyes and looked at her pitifully. "Big sister, can't I eat it?" She had been waiting for an entire afternoon. Gu Yundong coughed lightly and quickly nodded. Sure. The little girl immediately cheered. "I'll go call brother and the others." She was a good child and had to tell her friends if she had food. Gu Yundong laughed and shook her head. She took out the candies. After a while, the young lady came in. "Big sister, someone is looking for you outside." Chapter 137. Good farmer. Gu Yundong put down the candy in his hand, wiped his hands, and left. He was standing in the courtyard with a basket in her hand. She looked very uneasy. When she saw Gu Yundong come out, Dong Xilan hurriedly went forward and asked, sister-in-law sure said that she would give you oranges. I know. One saw her in the city before and told her. Aunt, please pour me a glass of water. Dong Xiulan nodded. All right, there's still ginger tea that I made for the homestead. I'll bring it over. Gu Yundong thanked him and led He to the central room. Aunt, have you sold out the basket of oranges? He quickly nodded. Sigh, I sold them all. I met a teahouse buyer and saw that the oranges were fresh, so I bought them all. My boss specially picked these and brought them back. Can you take a look? She placed the basket on the table and opened the cloth, revealing more than 10 round and refreshing oranges. Gu Yundong liked it at a glance. He felt a little uncomfortable when she asked him to sit, so he sat on half of her butt. Auntie, calculate how much it is. I'll pay. He was silent for a moment before saying softly, one copper coin each. Gu Yundong frowned. The pears he bought last time were also 1 copper coin each, but the quality of the pears was not good and they were not very fresh. They could not compare to this orange at all. The price was obviously lower. Auntie, let's go with the market price. If you give me such a cheap price, others will say that I bullied an honest person. At this moment, Dong Xiulan came over with ginger tea. She handed it to He and said with a smile, the Shi family planted oranges well. Last time, a foreign merchant passed by the village and saw it. He bought it for 10 copper coins a catty. 10 copper coins per catty. In this era, a catty was 16 taels. The Shi family's oranges were big and watery. Almost 4 of them would be a catty. This was only what she had bought in the village. It might be more than that if she sold the orange at the market. Gu Yundong knew what to do and took out 60 copper coins. Auntie, keep it. When He saw this, she quickly refused. That's too much, that's too much. Yes, 50 copper coins is the money I paid for the 20 oranges. The other 10 copper coins are compensation for knocking over your basket. When He heard this, she did not dare to take the money anymore. It's not damaged. Why would one want compensation? Gu Yundong had a headache. It was not good to be too polite. Dong Xiulan had been with her for a while and more or less understood her personality, so she pulled He aside to persuade her. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief. In the end, He accepted the 60 copper coins and thanked Gu Yundong again and again before leaving the Xing family. Her son is a hooligan. I didn't expect the parents to be so honest. Gu Yundong shook his head and turned to look at the oranges on the table. He said to Dong Xiulan, the Shi family's oranges are indeed planted well. They are fragrant, sweet, and big. Of course. Dajiang and his wife are really good at farming, especially those fruit trees. They're just too cowardly. Dong Xiulan admitted that she wasn't bold, but compared to Dajiang and his wife, she could be considered valiant. Gu Yundong thought about it and felt that she should go to the village chief's house. Aunt, I'll have to trouble you to cook dinner with my mother. I have something to do and have to go out. Hey, it's so late. Why are you still going out? I'll be right back. With that, Gu Yundong walked out of the Xing family's door. It was only when Gu Yundong reached Qin Liang's house that he realized that it was impolite to come to his house during dinner. Chapter 138, The Shi family's past. Fortunately, when she entered, Madame Zhou had just started cooking. Qin Liang was a little surprised to see her. Why are you here at this time? Are you looking for me? I want to ask Uncle Qin about something. Qin Liang walked to the central room and sat down. He pointed at the chair opposite him. Ask away. It's about Dajiang's family. One met them selling oranges in the city today. They looked big and sweet. Auntie Dong said that the couple is very good at planting fruit trees. One won't hide it from Uncle Qin. I want to plant some fruit trees, but I don't know much about this. Qin Liang was a little surprised. You want to plant fruit trees? Yes. In any case, the village chief would know if she bought land later. Qingyuan lowered his eyes and thought for a moment before saying, "The older people in the village know what's going on with the Xian'er family. It's fine to tell you. Don't think that Zhuangzi is so unreasonable, but his parents are good. If you want to ask them for help, look for them. They're reliable." Yundong was surprised. From the sound of it, there seemed to be more to it. Everyone in the village says that Xian'er and his wife are timid and weak. They will only lower their heads and admit their mistakes when they are bullied. Actually, they were not like this in the past. When the two of them first got married, they were energetic every day. In the beginning, they even bought a piece of land and planted fruit trees. Not to mention, they planted fruit trees better than the villagers. Not only were there oranges, but there were also pears, dates, persimmons. When those fruits ripen, they looked really good hanging on trees. What a pity. Qingyuan shook his head. At that time, there was a landlord in the neighboring village who took a fancy to that fruit forest and insisted on buying it. He even offered a low price. How could this person be willing to sell the fruits that he had painstakingly planted? Yundong was puzzled. The landlord of the neighboring village had such a long reach? At that time, I wasn't the village chief yet. The person before me was a greedy person. He took some benefits from the landlord and helped the landlord force the Xian'er family to give up the fruit forest. Dajiang was still a little hot-tempered at that time. He argued with the landlord and chased the servants of the landlord out. After a while, the commotion became bigger and bigger. In the end, Dajiang's parents died. Yundong's eyes widened. "You mean?" Qingyuan sighed and nodded. The landlord got someone to do it. The entire Xian'er family was beaten up. Dajiang and he were young. They would be fine after resting for a while. His parents were old. They fell sick every other day because of the previous incident. After suffering again, they didn't make it. His parents had both passed away, and the fruit forest had not been saved. His family was in a mess, and Dajiang had collapsed. His vitality seemed to have been forcefully sucked away just like that. At that time, Zhuangzi had just been born. Before his parents died, they reminded him not to resist. Their family had no background or backing, and those relatives did not dare to help them offend the landlord and village chief. For this family and for the newborn Zhuangzi, they should tolerate it if they could. They would retreat if they could and try not to become enemies with others. Since then, Dajiang and his wife's temperament had changed drastically. They did not argue with the landlord again. From then on, they did not walk around outside much and mostly stayed at home. As for Zhuangzi, he became more and more rebellious because he was dissatisfied with his parents. Especially after he discovered that after hanging out with Liang, those people who bullied his family did not dare to cause trouble again. It was as if he had found a way to survive and became even more uncontrollable. Yundong could not help but sigh. It was no wonder that his parents had passed away. What about the landlord? Chapter 139, Confrontation. When Yundong came out of the village chief's house, the sky was already slightly dark. She was not in a hurry. She walked slowly along the village path. She had been in Yongfu village for so long, but she had never felt the peace of Yongfu village at such a time. The sound of children crying could be heard from this house, and the sound of husband and wife quarreling could be heard from that house. It was lively, as if all kinds of life flashed past her eyes. She should be glad that she came to Yongfu village at the right time and met Qingyuan as the village chief. The former village chief was said to have drunken alcohol one night and had not found his home after leaving. He had frozen to death outside on a snowy day. Everyone said that he had done too many bad things and received retribution. The landlord didn't have a good ending either. A few years ago, Fengkai County had the current county magistrate. The landlord did something evil and bumped into the county magistrate. His house was confiscated, and the landlord was beheaded. His family was exiled. Unfortunately, the Xian'er couple's temperament had already been set. Even if the two mountains that suppressed them were gone, they would not be able to turn around. However, Chen Liang was right. This did not stop her from asking them for help. Gu Yundong's mood improved. She could not help but smile when she walked into the Xing residence. Until she saw the children confronting each other in the courtyard. On the left were Gu Yunshu, Niu Dan, the three Xing siblings, and Madame Yang. On the right was Gu Yunke. But why did Gu Yundong feel that Gu Yunke, who was alone, was more imposing? The children did not see Gu Yundong enter. They were all holding lollipops, while Gu Yunke had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, a whole bunch of them. In terms of the number of lollipops, she was more imposing than the few people opposite her combined. Kiki, you're being too unfair. We each have 1, and you have so many, Gu Yunshu said angrily. Gu Yunke immediately put her hands behind her back and hid the lollipop in her hand. However, in this way, a few candies fell out of the front pocket of her clothes. The little girl was stunned and hurriedly stuffed the lollipops into her pocket. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. She had asked Madame Yang to sew this pocket for her. Occasionally, this girl would take some peanuts and chestnuts and put them in the pocket to eat slowly. The lollipop was wrapped in oil paper, so it would not stick to the pocket. After stuffing the lollipop into the front pocket, the little girl realized that the lollipops in the two sides of her pants had fallen out again. She was so anxious that she was sweating profusely. In the end, she simply pulled off the hat on her head, put the lollipop inside, closed it, and hid it behind her back. Then, she raised her head. Her hair was bouncing because she had lost her hat. Look, I didn't. Gu Yunshu was furious. It's in your hat. Hiding the candy in front of everyone. Did she think they were all blind? The little girl shook her head vigorously. One said no, so I didn't. Kiki, give each of us another one. You can have the rest, okay? Niu Dan coaxed her. He had licked the lollipop just now. It was simply too delicious. He felt like he was about to ascend to heaven. It was much, much better than sweets. He couldn't bear to eat another bite. Gu Yundong shook his head. He walked behind Gu Yunke and took the hat from her hand. The little girl was stunned and hurriedly turned around. When she saw that it was her eldest sister, she immediately pouted and looked at her pitifully. One didn't. That aggrieved expression, as if tears were about to fall the next moment. Chapter 140, Nice, Delicious, Not Greasy. Gu Yundong could not take it anymore. She quickly took one out of her hat and gave it to her. You can't eat too much sugar, or your teeth will rot. In the future, you won't be able to eat braised pork, rabbit meat, or chicken. The little girl swallowed her saliva and looked at the lollipop eagerly. Then one, then I, she couldn't finish the rest of the sentence. Gu Yundong smiled. How about this? I'll keep the candy for now. I'll give you one a day, okay? As she spoke, she looked at the other children. You too. You can't eat too much sugar. In the future, take one every day to develop a habit. Otherwise, if I make all kinds of sugar in the future, you won't be able to keep your teeth. Gu Yunshu's eyes lit up. Eldest sister wants to make all kinds of sugar? Niu Dan and the others' focus was on another thing. Can we eat candy every day? This was a very extravagant thing. Sugar was very precious. Niu Dan family rarely bought it. Even if they did, they could only eat it during the New Year and festival. It was usually hidden well. Gu Yundong nodded. I just made this candy. Try it and see if it tastes good. I'll try another type of candy tomorrow. Only then did the children start to carefully eat the beautiful and cute lollipop in front of them. Gu Yundong had made several molds before. They were all simple ones. Some were square, some were round, some were heart-shaped, and some were pentagrams. There were almost all of them, and they looked very likable. In fact, if she really started, she could even make models of various small animals. Yes, it's delicious. It's sweet and fragrant. It tastes like pears. Gu Yunshu was the first to speak. His eyes were shining. Niu Dan also nodded vigorously. Previously, he had licked it for the first time and didn't think about it carefully. This time, after eating it, he was so excited that his body was trembling. Sister Yundong, did you really make this? It's even better than what I used to eat. This isn't greasy at all, and it doesn't stick to my teeth. Xingyu also said, Sister Yundong, if we sell this, it will definitely be sold out in an instant. This was what Gu Yundong wanted. Do you all think so? It's good looking, delicious, and not greasy. Zheng Jia was the oldest among the children. Zheng Hu, who had always been taken care of next door, was also quiet. It was rare for him to express his opinion. As for the two youngest and oldest, Zheng Lu, Gu Yunke, and Madame Yang, they could not be bothered to speak. They ate happily. Gu Yundong was in a good mood. She took out a few more lollipops and handed them to Gu Yunshu. Take them to the next room for your Uncle Zheng and Brother Shao. Go. Then, she gave one to Madame Dong and ate the other. Gu Yunke looked on helplessly as she ate. Her gaze was extremely pitiful. Gu Yundong was amused by her. Don't worry, there will definitely be one a day. If you perform well, eldest sister will reward you with one more. With that, she went into the kitchen. Because the sweets she made had received the unanimous approval of Shao Qingyuan and the others, Gu Yundong became confident about what she had to do next. At night, she lay in bed and thought about her future development. When she earned money, it would be much simpler to look for Gu Dajiang or treat Madame Yang. The next morning, Gu Yundong put on the carriage and went out. Unexpectedly, when she left the courtyard, she saw that Shao Qingyuan was already waiting there. Young Master Lu hasn't given me the money. 111 go to the county city too. This is a big deal. Come up then. The two of them went to the Lu residence together. Unexpectedly, when they reached the entrance, Lu Wei was already waiting outside. Chapter 141, 20 Catties. First, Lu Wei had a gloating smile on his face. Gu Yundong's heart skipped a beat and she had a bad feeling. Sure enough, as soon as she stepped forward, she heard his sly voice. One have bad news for you. Do you want to hear it? Gu Yundong clenched her fists. Could she go up and beat him up? Before she could answer, Lu Wei couldn't help but say, half an hour ago, a servant from the Qin family came over and said that Brother Qin and his wife had gone out and would only be back in a few days. He left my brother some homework and asked him to finish it at home. So your plan to go to school is ruined. Lu Wei felt that his grievances from yesterday were finally swept away. Gu Yundong could not hold it in any longer. She stepped on his foot and turned to leave. Ouch! Lu Wei cried so loudly that even Luan couldn't bear to look at him. Young master, you're the eldest young master of the Lu family. Can you take note of your status? How can you feel so accomplished bullying a 13-year-old girl? Before Lu Wei could stop shouting, Shao Qingyuan was already standing in front of him. Give me the silver. Lu Wei almost spat out a mouthful of blood. This was his sworn brother who would live and die with him. This was simply heartless and unreasonable. He asked Luan to give him the banknotes. Then, he snorted and decided to cut ties with him. Unexpectedly, Shao Qingyuan took the banknotes and followed Gu Yundong. Lu Wei, Gu Yundong walked for a long distance before slowing down. Shao Qingyuan's legs were long, so it didn't take long for him to catch up. Seeing that she didn't seem to be in a good mood, he opened his mouth and said after a while, actually, there are other schools in the county city. You can look at other schools. Gu Yundong sighed. I already know the best one. Why would one be willing to settle for something else? Not to mention anything else, just from the fact that the Lu family spared no effort to send the child over, it could be seen that this was a rare teacher. To be able to become the top scholar at the age of 18, he must be at least more knowledgeable than the other teachers in the county. When the court was in turmoil, his courage to retreat meant that he was not pedantic but flexible. He remembered the Liu family's favor, which showed that he was grateful. If he did not look at their family background to take in students, it was obvious that he would not be greedy, lecherous, and trample on others. In addition, he was young and knew how to scheme against Lu Wei. Gu Yundong was very satisfied. Forget it, he'll come back eventually. Anyway, Yun Shu is still young. There's no hurry. Gu Yundong decided to come back after Qin Wenjing returned to the county. By the way, do you know where the largest grocery store in the county is? I want to buy some sugar. She wanted to try orange-flavored candy. I'll take you there. The largest grocery store in the county was also on East Street. It was not far away. When Gu Yundong entered, the grocery store was quite lively. The waiter greeted the other customers. Gu Yundong looked around and frowned slightly. Seeing that she didn't buy anything after walking around and even looked a little unhappy, the shopkeeper walked over and asked, "Miss, what do you want to buy?" "Our shop is the largest grocery store in Fengkai County. You can buy anything you want." "I want to buy white sugar." She looked around but couldn't find it. The shopkeeper was stunned. He looked at her from head to toe. Judging from her clothes, she was also from the countryside. How could she afford white sugar? "Miss, this white sugar is not cheap. How much do you want?" "Let's start with 20 catties." The shopkeeper glared at her. Even the waiter and customers beside her turned their heads in surprise when they heard this. "How much do you want?" Chapter 142, Can you afford it? 20 catties, Gu Yundong repeated. She didn't know what they were trying to do with their expressions. The shopkeeper frowned. "Miss, you're here to cause trouble, right? 20 catties? Do you know how much it costs?" "How much?" "1 tael of white sugar for 25 copper coins." The shopkeeper sneered. "Can you afford it? You asked for 20 catties so easily." Gu Yundong knew that white sugar and brown sugar were quite expensive. She had bought sweets on the streets for the two children as snacks. The sweets were slightly cheaper. Previously, in the prefectural city of Xian'er Prefecture, she had forgotten to buy white sugar when she went to the grocery store to buy oil, salt, rice, and noodles. It was only when she returned to Aunt K's house to take out some things that she remembered. At that time, she wanted to buy it. Aunt Ke said that sugar was expensive and she wouldn't need much anyway. They had it at home, so she could use it at home. Gu Yundong did not refuse. However, the white sugar Aunt Ke took out was not pure white sugar. It was just brighter than black sugar. However, she only used it as seasoning when cooking braised pork. She rarely used it for other purposes. Later on, when she came to Yongfu village, she never thought of buying candy, mainly because it was inconvenient. She had forgotten about it a few times when she went to the county city in town. Therefore, when she needed candy, she could only take it from her space when Madame Dong was not paying attention. Fortunately, Madame Dong did not know what she had brought with her when she came from the prefectural city. She was not as sharp as Aunt Ku. She had specially come over to buy it today. She did not expect it to be so difficult to buy 20 catties of white sugar. And it was so expensive. But hearing the shopkeeper's words, Gu Yundong was unhappy. "Why do you care if I can afford it? Do you have it in your provision store? If not, I'll buy it elsewhere." The shopkeeper snorted and asked the waiter to go to the warehouse at the back to get it. He walked to the counter and began to calculate. 1 tael for 25 copper coins. 20 catties costs 8 taels of silver. "Miss, have you brought enough silver?" "Yes." Gu Yundong did not want to say anything more, but the other customers in the shop watched her and started discussing quietly. "This girl is quite bold. She actually wants to buy 20 catties of white sugar. She's really generous. Don't tell me she's pretending. Look at the clothes she's wearing. One look and you can tell that she's from the countryside. It's good enough that she has 8 copper coins on her. 8 taels of silver. Let's see what you say later. Hence, the few people who had bought the goods stopped walking and looked at Gu Yundong. Shao Qingyuan stood at the door and did not go in. He did not know what was going on inside. He only saw that Gu Yundong had not come out in a long time. She looked inside. Seeing that she was fine, he turned back. The waiter quickly brought out a large bag of sugar and placed it in front of Gu Yundong. He said arrogantly, "Here, it's all here. Do you want me to weigh it for you?" Gu Yundong opened the bag and looked down. Her expression immediately became complicated. This was also considered white sugar. Shopkeeper, one want that kind of very white sugar. It's like white clouds. Isn't this too black? The shopkeeper suddenly walked out from behind the counter, closed the bag, and put it behind him. What nonsense are you talking about? And very white sugar. Let me tell you, this is the best we have. Are you buying it or not? If not, get lost. He was about to spit out saliva. You're here to cause trouble because our shop's business is good, right? I knew it. You look poor and keep saying that you want to buy 20 catties of white sugar. You've never seen the world, so you're spouting nonsense here. If you have the ability, find me white sugar like white clouds. If you find it, I'll buy it back at 10 times the price. With that, he pushed Gu Yundong. Shao Qingyuan rushed forward and grabbed his hand. He looked at him coldly. Gu Yundong was also annoyed. You're the one who hasn't seen the world. I'll make some for you to see. Don't forget what you said when the time comes. As soon as Lu Wei arrived, he heard her last sentence. Chapter 143, Make It Yourself, Plant It Yourself. The shopkeeper was a little afraid of being beaten up by Shao Qingyuan. He did not dare to look him in the eye and could only say to Gu Yundong, "All right, go and try making some. You stinky girl who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth." When Shao Qingyuan exerted force, the shopkeeper immediately did not dare to speak. Lu Wei knew that this provision store belonged to the Tao family in the county city. Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan would be at a disadvantage if this matter blew up. He quickly took 2 steps forward and glared at the shopkeeper. "You snob. Let's go. We won't buy it here." With that, he pulled Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan out of the provision store. As soon as they left, the others in the shop suddenly woke up. After a moment of silence, they burst into laughter in the next moment. That little girl really dares to brag. Is there something wrong with her brain? I think she's talking nonsense. If she had that ability, would she still be dressed like that? She definitely can't take out 8 taels of silver and is deliberately looking for a way out. That was young Master Lu just now, right? Young Master Lu is getting more and more unreasonable. What kind of friends does he have? Forget about that girl, the man beside her also looks fierce. The shop assistant beside him rolled his eyes and whispered into the shopkeeper's ear, "Didn't our young master lose to young Master Lu in polo last time and throw a big tantrum at home? Can we use this matter to vent our anger this time?" The shopkeeper's eyes lit up. "Kid, you're the smartest. Take good care of the shop. I'll go out for a while." Gu Yundong and the other 2 gradually walked away, but the conversation still drifted into their ears. Lu Wei frowned. "Gu girl, you'll be struck by lightning if you talk big." "Who's talking big?" Gu Yundong glared at him. Lu Wei sneered. "One heard you say that you can make sugar that's even whiter than that in the grocery store. If you don't believe me, let's make a bet." Gu Yundong stopped in her tracks. "If I succeed, you have to do something for me." "All right." Lu Wei agreed readily. In any case, he didn't believe her. He was just coaxing the little girl to play. Gu Yundong turned to look at Shao Qingyuan, who instantly reacted. "I'll testify. Then let's go home and get ready." Gu Yundong suddenly became energetic. All right, if there was no sugar, she would make it herself. If there were no fruits, she would grow them herself. When Gu Yundong returned to Yongfu village, she asked Dong Xiulan who planted sugarcane. Coincidentally, the Shi family had it. However, it wasn't a lot. When Shao Qingyuan heard this, he bought a large batch from other places. Gu Yundong was surprised, but she was very happy. She went to look for Shi Dashan. The couple happened to be working in the field. Gu Yundong took the opportunity to look at her fruit forest. It was really as the village chief had said. It looked pleasing. When the Shi couple saw Gu Yundong suddenly come over, they panicked, especially when they saw that her gaze was fixed on their fruit forest with satisfaction in her eyes. They were so flustered that they almost hit their feet with their hoe. Could it be that after Landlord Li died, another landlord Gu came? Was it fate that they were not suitable for planting fruit trees? They had waited for Landlord Li to die before planting such a small piece. Gu Yundong had already jumped off the ridge. She smiled and tried her best to look at the Shi couple lovingly. However, Shi Dashan and his wife looked at her expression as if they had seen a ghost. They resisted the urge to turn around and run. Chapter 144. House constructed. Gu Yundong could not understand their attitude, but she still tried her best to be friendly and tell them about his plan to buy his sugarcane. When the Shi couple heard this, they secretly heaved a sigh of relief and asked her how much she wanted. Gu Yundong had already seen the quantity of sugarcane in their house. It was not much. Therefore, sell them all to me if you can. The Shi couple was surprised, but it was naturally good that they could sell all the sugarcane. This was much easier than them painstakingly dragging the sugarcane to town or county to sell. Gu Yundong still paid the market price. After paying, the Shi couple quickly harvested all the sugarcane and sent it to her. Looking at the courtyard filled with sugarcane, Madame Dong was a little stunned. When Gu Yundong said that she wanted to make sugar, she was even more shocked. However, she could not say anything. While she was surprised, she still diligently helped her. Gu Yundong knew how to refine sugar. During her internship in university, she had competed for the position of a television host's assistant with her ability. The host was in charge of the program to search for some heritage skills that were about to disappear. Gu Yundong worked hard by her side. The host found it tiring and Gu Yundong had helped her with her homework. Among them was the method of making sugar. She had personally made it with the craftsman and would ask questions if she didn't understand. Unfortunately, she had only tried it twice at most and wasn't considered familiar with it. Back then, she would record these steps in her notebook. Unfortunately, after the apocalypse, she did not have the time to bring that notebook out. However, she still remembered the general method. The problem now was to experiment. She had to get familiar with the process and perfect it bit by bit. She knew that people nowadays would add a kind of tree ash to refine the white sugar in the process of making sugar, but the kind given by the shopkeeper was definitely not refined like this. Perhaps the white sugar refined after adding tree ash could only be seen in those rich families. Gu Yundong had learned the yellow water method of making sugar. She knew that this was a method that appeared during the Ming dynasty. This world was different from the history she had learned before. This should not be considered changing history. This method was to simmer the sugarcane after squeezing the juice. First, they would make black sugar according to the conventional method. Then, they would put the black sugar into a tile funnel to form a lump. Then, they would pour the yellow mud water into the funnel to produce a reaction. Then, they would obtain white sugar. Gu Yundong brought everything she needed to the Zheng family's backyard. Madame Dong knew that these skills could not be taught to outsiders, so she was very self-aware. After doing what she could, she usually did not go to the backyard. Gu Yundong experimented, perfected, processed, and picked up the steps bit by bit. Her family didn't bother her. They even kept quiet and tried not to disturb her. Shao Qingyuan had been here a few times, and he had always helped her do the work that required hard work. Lu Wei had also been here. He seemed to have something urgent to discuss with Gu Yundong. But just as he reached the door, he was stopped by Shao Qingyuan. Gu Yundong vaguely heard him mention the word young Master Tao. However, she was very busy and quickly focused on her own matters. After more than 10 days, when Gu Yundong was still busy in the backyard, she was finally pulled out by Madame Dong. Her house was already built. The beam would be installed the day after tomorrow. Chapter 145, Gu Yundong, why are you here? Gu Yundong was still in a daze. The beam would be installed? She had not been to her house for the past few days. She did not know what was going on. She quickly put down the work in her hands, packed up, changed her clothes, and walked towards the homestead. Gu Yundong's eyes lit up as she looked at the refreshing green brick house in front of him. Finally, she had her own house. Fang Danning was also very excited. This was the most proud house he had built. He followed Gu Yundong inside. As he looked, he said, the beam will be up the day after tomorrow. This furniture might take another 2 days to be pulled over. This is the cellar you wanted. The well in the backyard has been dug. This house is really good. Fang Danning sighed. Gu Yundong looked around and was very satisfied. She would tell Madame Dong about the treat later. The beam installation here required a party. However, there were not many people in the village that the Gu family were familiar with. It was impossible for her to treat the entire village to a banquet. After some rough calculations, she realized that Shao Qingyuan, the Zhang family, the village chief's family, the Feng family, and the 6th great-grandfather were on good terms with her. There were also the workers who helped build the house. There were also 2 or 3 tables with their families. Yes, there was also the Shi family. Lu Wei would also be invited. Oh yes, there were also Gu Yunshu and Gu Yong's playmates. These 2 little fellows actually had friends, although there were only 2 or 3 of them. After drawing up the name list, Gu Yundong began to prepare. There were many things that she did not know. It was Madame Dong who told her what to buy and how to prepare steamed buns and peanuts. Madame Zhou and her daughter-in-law, Madame Song, also came over. Fang Danning's wife also said that she would help cook on the day of celebration. Gu Yundong was very grateful to them and was generous. On the day when the sun rose, Gu Yundong was woken up by Madame Dong. She brought Madame Yang and the other 2 to the entrance of her house and saw more than half of the villagers gathered there. Madame Zhou came over to call her. Yundong, quick, firecrackers are going off. Gu Yundong asked Gu Yunshu to light the firecrackers. The moment the firecrackers sounded, Fang Danning and the others also shouted, the beam is up. Gu Yundong threw out all the peanuts, cinnamon, and round steamed buns in her hand, mixed with copper coins. All the men, women, old, and young present pounced over excitedly to snatch it. Those who managed to snatch the copper coins were screaming and shouting. Gu Yunshu and Gu Yunka were completely awake and were playing with each other. After the beam was up and the crowd dispersed, it was time to prepare the food. Madame Dong, Madame Zhou, and the others began to cut the vegetables and meat. They looked at the vegetables that Gu Yundong had bought and smiled. Later on, guests arrived one after another. There were also uninvited guests from the village. As long as they were not here to cause trouble, Gu Yundong would let them in, including Madame Fang and her daughter. Lu Wei was in the county city, but he came especially early, as if he was here for breakfast. However, there was also an unexpected family, the Peng family. Peng Zhongfei didn't come. He didn't dare to come. However, he also paid attention to the day when the Gu family's house was completed. That day, he got someone to send a gift over. Because the person in charge of the Gu family was a girl, he asked for the help of his wife's nanny to send it over. That nanny was quite arrogant. She even brought 2 servant girls with her. Since they were guests, Gu Yundong naturally invited them in. Besides, she was very willing to accept gifts. Unexpectedly, just as the 3 of them entered, one of the servant girls behind the nanny suddenly widened her eyes and shouted, Gu Yundong. Why is it you? Chapter 146, Gu Xian'er's request. The voice was almost shrill. Everyone present heard it and looked at the girl who spoke in surprise. Gu Yundong also looked at her. It took her a while to find out this person's identity from her memories. Oh, it was Gu Xian'er. Second Uncle Gu Da's daughter, the cousin who specialized in bullying them. Back then, Gu Dajiang got married relatively late, so Gu Yundong was only 4 months older than her cousin. Gu Yundong was very dissatisfied with this King life. She wanted to meet Gu Dajiang, but she couldn't. Now, she actually met this person who she didn't even want to look at. The mammy of the Fang family also looked at Gu Xian'er in surprise. The latter had already taken a few steps forward and grabbed Gu Yundong's hand. Why are you here? You're not dead? Pfft, you're the one who should be dead. She was the one who wanted to ask why Gu Xian'er was here. Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. This is my home. If I'm not here, where am one? Gu Xian'er was stunned. Her home? That's right. Previously, Granny Qian had said that the owner of the house that they had come to give gifts was surnamed Gu. At that time, she had thought that they really had the same surname but different lives. Especially when she saw this green brick tiled house at the door, she wished that she was the owner surnamed Gu. Unexpectedly, this person was Gu Yundong. How was this possible? Gu Yundong looked around and realized that everyone was looking at them. She did not want to become a topic of discussion, especially today, which was a good day for her house to be completed. It was too unlucky to be destroyed by an unknown person. Hence, she glanced at Gu Xian'er and said, "Follow me." Gu Xian'er was full of questions, so she quickly followed her. Madame Zhou was also in the hall. Although she did not know what had happened, she was the village chief's wife after all. She quickly went forward to greet Nanny Qian and the others. Everyone, take a seat. Let's eat some melon seeds and talk. There's brown sugar water here. It's very sweet. Don't be polite. Everyone, take a seat. Brown sugar water? This was good stuff. The Gu family was actually treating guests with this. Wasn't this too generous? Of course, these brown sugars were the products of Gu Yundong's experiments before she refined white sugar. Everyone's attention was immediately attracted by the brown sugar water. Only a few people looked at Gu Yundong. Gu Yundong brought her to a room inside. Along the way, Gu Xian'er took in the scenery of the Gu family. Although the house had not been completely decorated, just by looking at the prototype that had been built, it was enough to imagine how blissful it would be to stay in such a home. At least, it was much better than the old Gu family in the past. Gu Xian'er was overjoyed. She did not expect Gu Yundong to be so lucky. Not only did she survive the famine, but she also built such a huge house. Gu Xian'er was glad that she had followed Granny Qian here today. After closing the door of the room, Gu Yundong saw that she was still looking left and right, her eyes shining. She did not need to think to know what this woman was thinking. Why are you here? How did you become a servant of the Fang family? Gu Xian'er finally came back to her senses. When she heard the word servant, she was a little unhappy. It's all because of those 2 old farts. They were instigated by third uncle's family and actually sold me to a human broker with a bag of sweet potatoes. I was brought to Fengkai County by the human broker. Then, as if she had thought of something, her eyes suddenly lit up and she said, "You must have a lot of money to build such a good house. Hurry up and go to the Fang residence to redeem me." Chapter 147, Bullying the Weak and Fearing the Hard. Gu Yundong almost laughed out loud at her words. Redeem her? It would be good enough if she did not force her to be a servant girl in the Fang residence. Redeem her? However, Gu Xian'er did not see her expression. She looked up at the room that was twice as big as the one she used to have in the Gu family and said excitedly, "This room is not bad. Let me stay in it in the future. When the time comes, I want a big carved bed and a dressing table. There have to be a few cabinets over there. Oh right, there are also vases. Rich families have to put vases in their rooms. That's how the Peng family is. She had already planned to get Gu Yundong to buy her a few silk flowers and cut a few pieces of cloth with a better color to make clothes. Living in such a house and wearing new clothes, wasn't she like a young lady? Gu Xian'er. Gu Yundong interrupted her thoughts and asked with a sneer, "How long have you been a servant in the Peng Manor?" "Why are you asking this?" "It's been less than 2 months," she replied impatiently. Less than 2 months. It seemed that she came to Yongfu village a little earlier. Gu Yundong nodded. "That's not a short period of time." "Why? Have you not learned how to bend your knees after being a servant for nearly 2 months?" Gu Xian'er was stunned. What do you mean? Where did a servant get the confidence to order people around in my house?" "Gu Yundong, how dare you talk to me like that?" In the past, Gu Yundong did not dare to refute her at all. Even if she was scolded or beaten by her, she would only cry and hide. Now, she was so bold. "Why wouldn't I dare? This is my house. Are you out of your mind to stand on my territory and order me around?" Gu Yundong looked at her as if she was looking at a fool. "You're the problem. You're really bold. Aren't you afraid that what's there to be afraid of? Are you afraid that you'll complain? Go, go, go. Go find the grandpa and grandma who sold you. Go find your lazy parents." Gu Yundong began to roll up her sleeves. "Or are you afraid that he'll hit you? Come, let's see whose fist is stronger." Gu Xian'er was horrified. Gu Yundong had really changed. She was no longer afraid of her and even dared to hit her. No, she must have seen that she had no backing. Her grandparents were not around, so she was the king. Seeing Gu Yundong like this, Gu Xian'er was still a little afraid. She could not help but take a step back. She braced herself and said, Aren't you afraid that he'll go out and shout at others, saying that you don't care about your cousin's life and death, that you have a cousin who is a servant in someone else's house and you want to save her?" Gu Yundong did not care. "Go. Let's see what the nanny who brought you here will think when she hears your words." "Oh, she will probably realize that you think the Peng family is a tiger's den. If I don't redeem you, I will leave you in the lurch." Gu Xian'er's expression changed. She didn't dare. She had only been in the Peng residence for less than 2 months and was just a servant girl. Today, Granny Qian happened to see her cleaning the courtyard and brought her along. It was said that she had this opportunity because those 2nd and 3rd grade maidservants refused to come to this countryside. Along the way, she had already seen Nanny Qian's strictness. If she heard these words, she would definitely suffer when she returned to the Peng residence. In fact, she had improved a little in the 2 months she had been in the Peng residence. It was just that she had suddenly met Gu Yundong and was used to her previous way of doing things. Now that she saw that Gu Yundong was not easy to bully, she did not dare to be too arrogant. This was something that bullied the weak and feared the strong. Chapter 148, Your sister Gu Xian'er gritted her teeth. "Are you really not afraid that others will say that you have a servant cousin? Aren't you afraid that the villagers will point fingers at you? I'm not the one who sold you. What am I afraid of? The Gao family in this village has a daughter who went to the prefectural city to be a servant girl. The Gao family still feels proud. Do you want to work hard and be a first-grade servant girl later so that I can bask in the glory?" Gu Xian'er realized that not only had Gu Yundong become bolder, but even her words were harsh. She did not want to be a servant at all. She had to wake up at a fixed time every day and wash clothes after sweeping the courtyard. Anyone could order her around. She was so busy every day that she did not have any time to rest. She also wanted to live in a big house and wear new clothes. She had seen that the material of Gu Yundong's clothes today was very good. Gu Xian'er knew when to yield and when to stand tall. At the thought of this, she knelt down with a thud. Her tears came as she said, "Sister, you're my elder sister. Please help me. I really can't stay in the Peng residence anymore. I have endless work to do every day and I still have to be beaten and scolded. The only family I have here is you. We have the same blood flowing in our bodies. Moreover, we've also left our hometown and met here. This is God telling us sisters to take care of each other and support each other. She said sincerely and tearfully, "Big sister, I'm your sister." Gu Yundong took a few steps back and opened the door of the room. As he walked out, he said, "I want to ask that Nanny Qian how the Peng family bullied you. Look at how terribly you're crying." Gu Xian'er immediately stood up without another word. She wiped her tears and walked out before Gu Yundong. Then, she turned around fiercely. "Gu Yundong, you win. Just you wait. I won't let you have it easy." Gu Yundong crossed her arms and looked at her coldly. Gu Xian'er had already tidied up her clothes and went to Nanny Qian. When the surrounding guests saw her coming out, they all looked in her direction. They were curious about who this person was. She seemed to know the Gu girl. Was she someone from her hometown before the Gu girl fled? They wanted to ask, but she had already returned to Granny Qian's side. They still kept a certain distance from these people who had come from the Peng residence. However, they could not suppress the flames of gossip in their hearts. All of them wanted to ask the rest of the Gu family. They did not dare to ask Gu Yundong. With Madame Yang helping in the kitchen, there were only 2 children left. Someone stopped Gu Yunshu and asked him in a low voice, "Who was the maid from the Peng residence to you?" Gu Yunshu had always been worried. His impression of Gu Xian'er bullying his elder sister in the old Gu family was still there. Now that he saw Gu Xian'er coming out, he hurriedly ran towards his elder sister. After running a few steps, he rushed over and took Gu Yunke away. He still remembered that Gu Xian'er had spared no effort in bullying Gu Yunke in the past. What if she was beaten up if he left her here alone? Everyone, answer the question before you leave. Everyone was curious, and so was Granny Qian. She saw Gu Xian'er return with red eyes and looked like she had been wronged. She narrowed her eyes and lowered her voice. "What's going on? Do you know this family?" Chapter 149, Have to guard against Gu Xian'er. Gu Xian'er was slightly stunned. She lowered her head and wiped the corners of her eyes. Then, she nodded and said softly, "Yes, that's my cousin." Nanny Qian was stunned and shocked. "Your cousin? Then Granny probably doesn't know that we fled here because of the famine in Yongning Prefecture. My cousin's family was chased out by my grandparents long ago. I was sold to human traffickers by my grandparents before I came to Peng Manor. I always thought that my cousin and the others were long gone. After all, my grandparents only gave them a few potatoes back then. Eldest aunt is a fool and my cousin has 2 young siblings. Eldest uncle has also disappeared." Nanny Qian really did not know Gu Xian'er's background. After all, she had only casually called a servant girl to carry things. And her cousin, Nanny Qian, looked at the imposing green brick house in front of her and frowned slightly. Gu Xian'er sighed slightly and continued, "I was too shocked and excited to see cousin just now, so I couldn't help but say a few more words. I thought I would never see the Gu family again in my life. I didn't expect cousin to not only live well, but also have the money to build such a good house and even know young Master Peng. She's too capable." Nanny Qian's eyes narrowed slightly. She was young Madame's trusted subordinate. Today, Madame wanted her to find out who the Gu family was. Why would young Master ask them to send a gift over for no reason? When did he get to know such a country bumpkin? The problem was that this gift was personally prepared by the young Master. It was not cheap. She glanced at Gu Xian'er and asked with narrowed eyes, "Then did your cousin tell you how she met the young master of our residence?" The person who had fled here had only arrived not long ago. There was no reason for young master to know her. Gu Xian'er shook her head. "I asked, but my cousin refused to tell me. She only told me to work hard in the Peng Manor." Nanny Qian stopped talking and lowered her head slightly to take a sip of brown sugar water. Where did this little girl from the Gu family get so much money? Nanny Qian had met Lu Wei, but she had also asked around just now. It seemed that young Master Lu had just arrived at Yongfu village not long ago. Moreover, he had asked a hunter surnamed Shao to bring him into the mountains for hunting. He only got to know the little girl because the little girl from the Gu family lived next door to the Shao family. In addition, the Gu family was the only family in the village who had a carriage. Young Master Lu borrowed her family's carriage. With such a close relationship, the Gu family actually invited him over. After staying in a rich family for a long time, Nanny Qian's thoughts became more complicated. She felt that this girl from the Gu family was really good at climbing up the ladder. The capable Gu Yundong stood in the room and could not help but laugh at the two worried children. Do you think she can still bully eldest sister now? Eldest sister will fight back. Gu Yunshu thought about it. Yes, eldest sister is not easy to bully now. Then they were relieved. Alright, you don't have to worry about eldest sister. If you're really worried, go and protect mother. Gu Yundong patted their heads. When the two little guys heard this, it was as if they had received an important mission. They nodded very seriously and rushed to the Xing family. The new house could not be used yet. They could only do the cooking at the Xing family's house for the time being. The two of them left, but Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and looked in the direction of the front yard. Gu Xian'er wasn't someone who would give up easily. She had to be careful. Chapter 150. Let the country bumpkins broaden their horizons. Gu Yundong was pondering when Shao Qingyuan arrived. He saw that she had not come out for a long time and was a little worried, so he came to take a look. Gu Yundong's eyes lit up when she saw him. Shao Qingyuan, do me a favor. Tell me. That Gu Xian'er, the woman who just came with me, is my cousin. Help me keep an eye on her today and see what she has done. Shao Qingyuan agreed without another word. Okay. Then, he walked towards the front courtyard. However, he had only taken 2 steps when Gu Yundong stopped him. Hey, wait, forget it. Your presence is too strong. It's too easy to be discovered if you keep an eye on her. Shao Qingyuan took 2 steps back and said, Don't worry, I won't be discovered. You have to trust me. Gu Yundong was stunned. When she met his sincere gaze, she nodded inexplicably. Shao Qingyuan suddenly laughed and left. Gu Yundong stood silently on the spot. She actually felt that Shao Qingyuan was so handsome. She suddenly slapped her face and came back to her senses. What kind of situation was this? Why was she still infatuated? Gu Yundong composed herself and strode towards the front yard. The villagers greeted her one after another. Gu Yundong smiled and replied, ignoring the curious eyes of the gossipy crowd. She still walked up to Granny Qian and went to talk to Gu Xian'er directly. She did not have the time to greet her. Nanny Qian's congratulatory gift had yet to be sent over. Logically speaking, she could have directly handed it to Madame Zhou, who was entertaining the guests at that time. However, she was from the Peng family and represented the master of the Peng family. She was also the richest and most powerful person present besides Lu Wei. She thought that she was superior. Compared to the villagers who only gave fruits, vegetables, eggs, and so on, the gifts they gave were much more valuable. Therefore, she naturally had to broaden the horizons of these people who had never seen the world. Nanny Qian reached back, and another maidservant placed the things on the table one by one. Nanny Qian smiled and said, This is a congratulatory gift from my young madam to the Gu family. I hope Miss Gu doesn't mind. The people present couldn't help but look over. There was a fruit box with all kinds of famous pastries in the city. A calligraphy painting, which, according to Granny Qian, was written by a famous calligrapher from the previous dynasty. There was a screen with embroidery of the 8 spirits of the Golden Age on it. Also, cloth. The Peng family was the largest cloth merchant in Fengkai County. This was the most practical gift. Gu Yundong did not expect the Peng family to be so generous. Peng Zhongfei. Was he really frightened? Not to mention anything else, just that calligraphy painting and that ornament were not easy to obtain. Lu Wei was also shocked. He thought of the gift he had given out previously and quietly pulled Luan over. Later, add another 20 taels of silver as a gift. Luan widened his eyes. Young master, you're too prodigal. Although he liked the Gu family was in the countryside after all. If he gave them too much, it would make them feel uneasy. If Gu Yundong knew what Luan was thinking, she would definitely kick him aside. What was there to be uneasy about? The more, the better. She could even smile in her dreams at night, okay? Did she look like someone who had never seen the world? Nanny Qian smiled and asked, Miss Gu, do you like them? She wanted to see Gu Yundong's flattered expression, but the latter nodded and calmly took the items. This is a token of your young madam's appreciation. Of course I like it. Chapter 151, Banquet. Gu Yundong could tell that Nanny Qian had become hostile ever since Gu Xian'er returned. She turned around and said to the others, everyone is here to congratulate my family for building a new house. I like whatever they give me. The villagers, who had been shocked by the gift from the Peng family, immediately laughed. Feng Danning thought, no wonder the village chief said that this girl's words made him feel comfortable. Nanny Qian's smile stiffened slightly. Gu Yundong greeted her with a smile. There are many people today. I'm so busy that my feet don't even touch the ground. Please forgive me if I'm lacking in hospitality. Nanny, please help yourself. Nanny Qian nodded with a smile. Seeing that Gu Yundong had gone to another table, she sat down again and asked Gu Xian'er, didn't you say that she's your cousin? But she doesn't sound like she came from the countryside at all. Gu Xian'er bit her lips slightly. My uncle studied when he was young, so my cousin learned a few words with him. So that was how it was. No wonder she spoke eloquently, as if she was afraid that others would not know that she could speak a few idioms. The more she lacked something, the more she wanted to show off. At this moment, everyone had already sat down. Shao Qingyuan was sitting not far from Granny Qian's table. Lu Wei was familiar with him, so he naturally sat at the same table as him. Sixth grandfather and the village chief were the most senior and prestigious people in the village. They naturally had to accompany Lu Wei, an esteemed guest from the city, so they sat at this table. The others also wanted to sit, especially Madame Fang and her daughter. There were a few times when they wanted to go to Lu Wei's side to greet him, but when they saw that Shao Qingyuan was around, they did not dare to. Therefore, this table was inexplicably much quieter. Chen Liang and the sixth grandfather were quite friendly to Shao Qingyuan and would occasionally chat with him during the meal. The dishes were served very quickly, and most of them were hard dishes. The villagers no longer cared about the Lu and Peng families. All of them reached out their chopsticks to pick up the meat with glowing faces. Nanny Qian brought 2 maidservants and sat with Madame Fang and her daughter. In fact, she could have left after delivering the gifts. However, after hearing Gu Xian'er's words, she could not help but sit a little longer. When the meat dishes were first served, she wanted to move her chopsticks. However, before she could move, the others at the table had already begun to snatch the dishes crazily. Nanny Qian's chopsticks stopped in midair. She could neither reach forward nor retract them. Gu Xian'er, who was beside her, was enjoying the food. She was a servant in the Peng family. Although she did not have to eat like she did when she was escaping, she still had to snatch food when it was time to eat. She did not have a background or ability, so she could only eat the leftovers. How could Gu Xian'er let go of such a rare hard dish? However, Nanny Qian could not stay any longer. Halfway through the meal, she still went to say goodbye to Gu Yundong. Gu Xian'er couldn't bear to leave, but there was nothing she could do. She stuffed 2 pieces of meat into her mouth forcefully before wiping her mouth and standing up. Wait for me outside. I'll go tell the master. She had originally wanted to bring Gu Xian'er along, but after half a day, She could tell that Gu Yundong and her cousin did not have a good relationship. Otherwise, why did she not even say a word to Gu Xian'er? Gu Xian'er and the other servant girl could only wait outside. However, the little girl was in a hurry to go to the toilet and left Gu Xian'er alone at the door. Gu Xian'er secretly sneered. Lazy people have a lot of feces and urine. As she spoke, she clasped her hands. It was really cold. She did not even have 2 pieces of clothing on her, but Gu Yundong could live so well. Just thinking about it made her feel unbalanced. Are you Gu Yundong's cousin? Suddenly, an unfamiliar voice came from behind. Chapter 152, You Killed Me This Time. Gu Xian'er turned around and saw a girl who was slightly older than her standing there. She gave her a measuring look. Who are you? My name is Qingyuan. Do you want to know about Gu Yundong? I can tell you. Qingyuan sat at the same table as them. She had overheard her conversation with Nanny Qian. She was very surprised that the 2 of them were cousins. Gu Xian'er narrowed her eyes and sized up Qingyuan. Did this person have a grudge against Gu Yundong? She knew it. Gu Yundong looked unlucky. She must have offended many people. Look, wasn't this just one? Granny Qian and the other girl had not arrived yet. Gu Xian'er looked around and said to Qingyuan, let's talk over there. The 2 of them walked forward and stopped 20 meters away from the house. Gu Xian'er really wanted to know what happened after Gu Yundong came to Yongfu village. She wanted to know where she got the money. Qingyuan spoke quickly. On the first day, she rented a carriage to serve as a noble and stayed in their house. Later on, she offended the hooligans in the village and was chased out by their family to stay at the Xing family's house. She told them everything she knew. Gu Xian'er, on the other hand, frowned. She had said so much, but it was all nonsense. She did not say where Gu Yundong had gotten the money. She was fed up with hearing that. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something. She moved closer to Qingyuan and whispered a few words into her ear. The latter's eyes lit up and she nodded repeatedly. All right, I know what to do. Gu Xian'er wanted to say more, but Granny Qian's impatient voice came from outside the Gu family's door. Gu Xian'er, where are you? Where did this brat go? Gu Xian'er was still afraid of Granny Qian. She didn't bother to talk to Qingyuan anymore and ran away quickly. Nanny Qian glared at her unhappily before leading them into the carriage outside and leaving Yongfu village. The liveliness in the Gu family continued. Gu Yundong was really generous on such an important day. Not to mention the dishes, there were also a lot of snacks. Everyone was a little reluctant to leave after eating and drinking their fill. If not for the village chief telling everyone to disperse, these people would still be sitting in the courtyard eating melon seeds and chatting. Some of the women in the village stayed behind to help clear the table and cutlery. The Shi couple also stayed. The 2 of them had always been honest. After eating such good food today, they had to help work. Coincidentally, Gu Yundong had something to discuss with them, so she did not stop them. When most of the guests had left, she was about to look for the Shi couple when she saw Gu Yunshu run over and whisper in her ear mysteriously, "Elder sister, Brother Lu is looking for you." Lu Wei? Gu Yundong's eyes lit up when he thought of Qin Wenjing. Could it be that there was news of his return? Lu Wei was waiting for her by the well in the backyard. When Gu Yundong went over, he was holding his hair and walking back and forth anxiously. Gu Yundong was surprised. What could make young Master Lu want to tear his head off? Lu Wei suddenly turned around. Hey, you're finally here. I have something very important to tell you. He had been waiting for an entire day, but he endured it and waited for her to finish the banquet before looking for her. What is it? Tell me. You killed me this time. Lu Wei suddenly glared at her. Chapter 153, You're smart, you solve it. Gu Yundong was confused. She had been studying white sugar in seclusion for the past few days and had not gone out for more than 10 days. She had only started to prepare the things needed for the banquet yesterday. How did she harm him? You have to make yourself clear. What did I do? Lu Wei took 2 more steps back and forth before he gritted his teeth and said, "Do you know that there's a rumor circulating in the upper circle of the county now? You said it yourself. How would I know about the upper echelons of the county?" Yundong could not help but roll her eyes. Lu Wei choked and didn't keep her in suspense anymore. He said directly, "It's all because you bragged in the Tao family's provision store last time." The next day, that kid from the Tao family specially came to me to verify the white sugar making matter. Damn it, he actually deliberately brought that shopkeeper over to ask about this. Do you think I can deny it? I braced myself and had to help you lie. In the end, this sinister person spread the news after leaving my house. He said that the Lu family had found a capable person who could make white sugar as white as the clouds. Yundong was speechless. She was not boasting. She was not. Lu Wei didn't seem to have a high IQ. This matter has caused an uproar. Even my father knows about it. The smelly old man from the Tao family came to my father and mocked me. He said that I was ignorant, incompetent, and inexperienced in making friends, and in becoming more and more unreliable. Let me tell you, they can laugh at me, but they can't laugh at my father. Yesterday, that Tao family came to my house again. He was very cunning. He deliberately angered me so much that I used the 2 shops in my family to gamble. Now, all the young masters in the county say that I will lose. Lu Wei, gambling is a very unacceptable behavior. Moreover, you actually gambled so much, Yundong said. The first time she saw him, she felt that he was a wastrel. She began to sympathize with his father. That's not the point. Lu Wei was about to go crazy. This matter started because of you. What do you think we should do? The corners of Yundong's mouth twitched as if she was looking at a retard. You're simply being shameless, aren't you? Even without me, your family and the Tao family already have a deep grudge. Sooner or later, they'll find another reason to trick you. Lu Wei couldn't win against her. Of course, he knew that those people were being shameless. However, he said, "You're smart. You settle it." Sigh, he needed to be taught a lesson. Yundong clenched her fists, but when she thought of the 20 taels of silver she received from him, she endured it. All right, on account of this wastrel's generosity, she would help him resolve it. It was mutually beneficial. Yundong rolled her eyes and said to him, "Wait here." With that, she turned around and left the backyard, returning to the main house. As soon as the door closed, she took out a jar from her space. Looking at the thin, white, and sweet sugar inside, Yundong smiled in satisfaction. When she came out again, she realized that Qingyuan, who had left earlier, had returned. Seeing that there was no one around, Qingyuan walked to her side and said softly, "Qingyuan went to look for Xian'er." The 2 of them talked for a long time outside. What did they say? Qingyuan? Why was this person so restless? She couldn't be bothered with her anymore. The mother and daughter were still jumping out. Did they really think that she wouldn't dare to touch them because they had an uncle who was the village chief? I didn't hear them clearly. They're too far away and there's nothing to cover me. It's not easy to get close. Qingyuan pursed his lips and looked very dissatisfied. I followed the mother and daughter just now. They seemed to have gone straight back. They didn't do anything for the time being. It's fine. It's enough to know that these 2 are in cahoots, Yundong said. Qingyuan was about to ask if he needed to do anything when he saw Lu Wei running out impatiently. Chapter 154, It's Really White Sugar. Goo girl, why did you take so long? Have you thought of a solution? Lu Wei did not seem to see Qingyuan. He reached out to pull Yundong the moment he arrived. Qingyuan blocked him. Just talk. Don't touch her. Only then did Lu Wei react. He quickly retracted his hand, but the expression on his face was still extremely anxious. Gu girl, how is it? Gu Yundong ignored him and walked to the backyard. People were coming over at any time. When they reached the backyard, Gu Yundong handed the jar in his hand to Lu Wei. The latter was stunned. What is it? Why don't you take a look? Lu Wei could only suppress the anxiety in his heart and open the lid of the jar. Then, under the sunlight, it looked especially dazzling. Lu Wei blinked. What is this? He had a very surreal guess, and he even became a little excited because of this unlikely guess. You can try it. Gu Yundong smiled. Lu Wei hurriedly reached into the jar to grab it, but the jar was too small and his hand was too big. He couldn't reach down even after holding it for a long time. Gu Yundong rolled his eyes. You can dip a finger in. Before she could finish speaking, she saw him holding the jar in one hand and pouring out a large handful with the other. Then, he stuck out his tongue and licked it. The next moment, his pupils constricted and he looked at Gu Yundong in shock. Sweet? Aha. This is white sugar, Gu Yundong said with a smile. Lu Wei's breathing suddenly stopped. He looked at the little girl in front of him in disbelief. Her chin was not even up to his chin. His lips could not help but tremble. Sugar that's like white clouds? Gu Yundong looked up at the sky and then at the sugar. He thought for a moment and said, What do you think? Lu Wei was dumbfounded. She made it, she really made it. She was not boasting. This sugar was sweet and tasted different from brown sugar, but it was even sweeter. Lu Wei was extremely shocked. How could she be so capable? Ha, ha ha ha. Lu Wei was stunned for a long time before he suddenly laughed. At first, he laughed intermittently, but later on, he actually laughed out loud. He laughed until his entire face turned red, and his entire body even trembled. Luan, who was originally guarding the entrance of the backyard, was shocked. He thought that something had happened and hurriedly ran over. Seeing that the young master was about to go crazy, Lu An's heart skipped a beat and he was about to cry. He quickly went forward and patted him. Young master, what's wrong with you? Don't scare me. What happened to you? Let's talk nicely. Lu Wei was almost suffocated by his slap. He suddenly kicked him. Go away. Then, he held the jar in front of Gu Yundong and said with shining eyes, Gu girl, you're amazing. How did you do it? What was it made of? Did you make it yourself? Gu Yundong was about to reply when Lu Wei waved his hand again. Forget it, forget it. We'll talk about this later. The most important thing now is to bring this jar of white sugar to Tao. I want him, this stupid person, to open his dog eyes and see what white sugar is. He couldn't help but laugh as he spoke. He took the jar and left. Chapter 155. You're mine. However, he had only taken 2 steps when he was stopped by Shao Qingyuan. Lu Wei widened his eyes. Shao Qingyuan, what are you doing? As he spoke, he hid the jar behind his back, as if he was afraid that Shao Qingyuan would snatch it away. He could defend against Shao Qingyuan, but not against Gu Yundong. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief when she immediately took the jar behind him. Fortunately, Shao Qingyuan moved quickly. This Lu Wei was a fool. Before she could finish speaking, he wanted to shout everywhere. She really wanted to beat him up. Lu Wei stretched out his hand. Give it back to me. What do you mean by give it back to you? This is mine. Could this person have any self-awareness? Lu Wei was instantly dejected, but he quickly said energetically, then sell it to me. How much is this jar? Gu Yundong rolled her eyes. I refined this candy, but I only have this one can. Lu Wei was stunned. Is it very difficult to make it? Yes, it must be very, very difficult. He was considered to be from a knowledgeable family, but he had never seen such clean, sweet, and thin white sugar. In that case, the Goo Girl was simply a genius. Moreover, there was only one jar of white sugar in this world. How expensive would such a rare thing be? Lu Wei counted his private savings in his heart, not knowing if it was enough. But before he could calculate it, Gu Yundong shook his head. It's not that difficult. Huh? Gu Yundong said, I've been perfecting the process of making sugar for more than 10 days. Previously, my technique was unstable and I did refine a lot of white sugar, but I was most satisfied with this jar. Before the apocalypse, she knew the process and method of making sugar and had tried before. However, at that time, there was a professional mentor guiding her. Moreover, the tools were ready-made. Now that she was alone, whether it was sugarcane or other things, she had to prepare them from scratch. It was not until she did it herself that she realized that she had forgotten some subtle steps, so she had to experiment again and again. Some steps were not that simple. If she was not careful, the white sugar refined would be very different from the ones in the jar now. Fortunately, after more than 10 days, she was used to it and there were no major problems. Lu Wei understood and his eyes began to light up. Since you said that there's no problem, can you give me this jar of candy? Not yet. Why not? One jar is too few. Back then, I said 20 catties at the grocery store. Don't you want to show that Tao guy 20 catties? Secondly, do you think many people will want to get the formula and cause trouble for me if you go out with such white sugar now? Lu Wei was stunned. Beside him, Shao Qingyuan also frowned. This last point was indeed a troublesome matter. At that time, the Tao family would probably be the first to have ideas. Lu Wei couldn't help but pull his hair again. Then what should we do? I'm looking for a backer. There was no patent now, but even if there was, it was useless to meet someone with power and influence. Gu Yundong had learned her lesson from Peng Zhongfei. If he dared to take her blueprint for himself so blatantly, others would also do whatever they could when they saw the huge benefits in the white sugar. Lu Wei nodded in agreement. Then, his eyes lit up. With our Lu family as your backer, everyone in the county thinks that you're mine. Shao Qingyuan suddenly looked at him. What did he mean by, you're mine? Chapter 156. So Gu Yundong is so insidious. Shao Qingyuan immediately denied it. Not enough. Lu Wei straightened his neck and wanted to retort, but Gu Yundong agreed. It's indeed not enough. Then who are you looking for? Lu Wei was unconvinced. The Lu family was considered one of the best in the county, right? Besides, their Lu family also had someone backing them. Gu Yundong said, last time, you said that the emperor intended for Qin Wenjing to return to the court. Is the news accurate? Of course. He paused and narrowed his eyes. You want Qin Wenjing to be your backer? Well, Qin Wenjing was indeed a very suitable candidate. However, he said, will he agree? Actually, our Lu family is not bad. You can even work with our family. Our family has channels and connections. Your sugar will definitely sell well. This brat finally thought of helping his family with business. This white sugar was a new thing and was very expensive. It was unique. The Lu family was already planning to leave the county city and walk to the prefectural city. This white sugar had come at the right time. Last time, you said that Qin Wenjing went out. It's been so many days. Has he returned to the county? There was another reason why Gu Yundong did not want to work with the Lu family. The Lu family was in business. It was business. They could cooperate in the future. It would be easier to settle the score if everything was clear. However, if they were her backer, she had no advantage at all. She could only do whatever the Lu family said. However, Qin Wenjing was an official. She would give him a certain amount of profit. He would be her protective umbrella. They would each take what they needed. Of course, the prerequisite was that she had to meet Qin Wenjing first and see if he was really as the rumors said. Lu Wei was still indignant. Qin Wenjing is focused on the people and the country. He might not be willing to be your backer. Refining such fine white sugar can be considered a big step forward for the development of the country. Isn't it considered serving the country and the people? What if he asks you to give the secret recipe directly to the imperial court? If what he offers is enough to move me, it's not impossible. Gu Yundong had never thought of keeping this secret recipe to herself. Sooner or later, the yellow mud method would flourish. Lu Wei couldn't refute her. He mumbled, "Brother Qin is back." Then, he looked at the jar in her hand and asked, "You really can't give this to me?" His expression of "I can't wait" to slap the white sugar on Tao's face and mock him for being ignorant and ask him to hand over the shops that he has lost was simply blinding. "Can't you stand it? Give me another 10 days at most, and they'll give you 20 pounds. All right, all right. It was so difficult to endure for 10 days. Gu Yundong said, "Actually, you can use these 10 days to let Tao show off in front of you again. Then, you can take the opportunity to increase the stakes." When that time comes, Lu Wei looked at Gu Yundong. Was this girl so sinister? Still, he liked it. "Ha ha ha, you're too smart. You're right. This time, I'll let Tao shoot himself in the foot and make him bleed." After saying that, Lu Wei turned around and ran away. "Luan, let's go back." Luan hurriedly responded and followed. Gu Yundong watched as he ran away like a gust of wind. He could not help but turn to Shao Qingyuan and say, "Do you think he'll be affected by him being so silly? Just stay away from him in the future." Gu Yundong nodded in agreement. However, halfway through, he suddenly clapped his hands. "Oh no, I forgot to tell him that this matter is confidential. Don't tell the Lu family for the time being." He should be back soon. The tables and chairs of the Gu family were borrowed from other families in the village. After cleaning up the utilities, they naturally had to return them. Gu Yundong was speechless. She finally understood that Zhuangzi treated her as if she was a demon. F***ck, had her image been ruined to this extent? Gu Yundong could not help but rub her temples. She secretly took a deep breath and suppressed the violent emotions in her heart. Then, she turned around and said kindly to He, "Auntie He, go in and drink some brown sugar water to warm up. I have something to tell Zhuangzi." Yes, impression of Gu Yundong had changed a lot. She knew that this girl was actually reasonable, so she nodded. Okay. There were many children playing outside the gate. The two of them were not alone. It was fine to talk in the countryside. Chapter 158, Finding Work for Zhuangzi. Zhuangzi looked at her uneasily. He looked around, as if he was looking for an opportunity to escape at any time. What are you going to tell me? I'll return that silver to you soon. Give me a few more days. No, give me another, 2 months. Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. Don't worry, I'm not asking you for the debt. I just want to ask you for a favor. A favor? Zhuangzi blinked in shock. She still needed his help? For some reason, he felt a little proud. That's right. If you agree, you don't have to return the money. All right. What favor are you talking about? I agree. She hadn't even said anything about the favor, but he dared to agree so quickly. Wasn't he afraid that she would make him commit murder and arson? Gu Yundong glanced at him and lowered her voice slightly. Help me keep an eye on Qingyuan and her mother. See what they have done and who they are meeting. The moment she saw Zhuangzi, she felt that he was the most suitable candidate. He was a hooligan to begin with. He usually had nothing to do and did not work in the fields. Even if he wandered around the village all day, no one would find it strange. Moreover, Zhuangzi was quite smart. At the very least, he understood the situation better than Hu Liang. Zhuangzi was a little confused. Keep an eye on Qingyuan and her mother? Why? Could it be that Madame Fang was finally having an affair with another man? Were they going to catch them in the act? Zhuangzi was a little excited. He was happy to do this. He had thought that there was something huge he needed to do. It was such a small matter. In order to add some gossip to the village, Zhuangzi expressed that it would not be a problem even if he was not allowed to drink or sleep. For how long? Yundong did not know why he was so excited. A month. Based on her understanding of Xian'er, if she was in cahoots with Qingyuan, she would not be able to resist the urge to do something bad within a month. Xian'er was in the Peng residence, so it wasn't easy to keep an eye on her. Similarly, Xian'er didn't have many chances to plot against her. As for Qingyuan, it was enough for Zhuangzi to keep an eye on her. Zhuangzi quickly calculated in his heart. Yes, it was only a month, but he could erase the debt of more than one tael of silver. It was much more profitable than him working outside. Moreover, it was farm time now. The strong laborers of the various villages had gone out to work. It was too difficult for a hooligan like him, who could not lift anything heavy, to find work. After talking to Zhuangzi, Yundong let him go. Zhuangzi was also dedicated to his work. When he returned, he went to squat near Madame Fang's house. As soon as he left, Madame Zhou and the rest also came out of the Xing family home. The cutlery and other things had already been cleaned up. A portion of the leftovers was left behind, and Yundong had let them split it up and leave. In addition, everyone was given a caddy of brown sugar. Madame Zhou and the others were overjoyed. Nowadays, sugar was very expensive. They only bought a little more than a caddy a year. Usually, they could not bear to eat it. They only ate it during the New Year or during confinement. Unexpectedly, Yundong gave them one caddy each, especially Madame Zhou. She and her daughter-in-law, Madame Song, came to help, but Yundong gave her 2 caddies. Madame Zhou beamed with joy and almost treated her as her biological daughter. Perhaps only Madame Dong knew how much brown sugar Yundong had. To others, brown sugar was very precious, but to Yundong, it was the most suitable gift. After Madame Zhou and the others left, Yundong carried the remaining brown sugar into her new home. Dajiang and He were still waiting for her there. Chapter 159. Buying a small mountain. Dajiang and his wife did not know why Yundong wanted them to stay. At this moment, they were sitting upright in the central room and quietly looking at the brand new house. No matter what, living in such a house was enviable and comfortable. They did not know when they could build one. If they built a new house, Zhuangzi would not have to worry about getting a wife. However, they were still in debt. The two of them looked at each other and sighed. Yundong came in at this time. Seeing this, she could not help but laugh. What's wrong? Uncle and Aunt sure must have waited for a long time. I'm sorry. The two of them quickly stood up. Not long, not long. Yundong asked us to stay and talk about something. What exactly is it? If you need help, just tell us. I really have something to ask Uncle and Aunt Sure for help with. Yundong asked the two of them to sit and fetched water for them. Then, she sat opposite them and said, I went to see Uncle Sure's fruit forest. The fruits planted are really good. I want to buy land to specially plant fruits. The workload is a little large, so I want you to help me take a look at the most suitable land in this village or the neighboring village. If you can handle it, I also want you to help me manage the fruit forest. Of course, I still have to hire more people, and the salary will not be low. The couple was stunned and looked at her in disbelief. Fruit forest? Yes, I don't know if you're willing. Yundong more or less understood the couple's personalities. They were actually very enthusiastic about planting fruit trees and took care of their fruit forest as if it was their children. When she went to their field back then, she saw the couple looking at their fruit forest with pure satisfaction. It was really infectious. Did they think of planting more fruits? Of course they did. However, they were too timid. The things that had happened in the past scared them, so they didn't dare to do it again. That was why Yundong wanted them to help manage the orchard. She thought that when they saw large fruit orchards one day, they would be filled with a sense of accomplishment. As expected, the couple looked at each other with excitement in their eyes. How big? Xian'er asked. I can't tell how big it is now. It depends on whether there is land. Of course, the bigger the better, Yundong said. Even if it was small now, she could buy more in the future. So, what kind of fruit tree do you want to grow? The soil needed for various fruits was naturally different. Some could be planted together, but some were not suitable. Yundong felt that the thing that needed to be planted in large quantities at the moment was sugarcane. Xian'er thought for a moment and said, actually, there's a small mountain on the east side of our village. It's very suitable, but it's not very big. Really? Yes, I used to think about buying that place when I had the money. But later, he did not dare to. It's about 30 acres. Do you want to take a look? Yes. Yundong immediately stood up and followed Xian'er and his wife to the eastern mountain. Although it was called a mountain, it was actually a slope. Of course, it was different from the deep mountains. She couldn't tell anything. Even after reading 2 books, she still didn't understand what sand, loam, and clay were. However, looking at Xian'er's happy expression, she knew that this was a good land. After looking around, Yundong went to look for the village chief. Qingyuan did not expect that she had already decided to buy a small mountain before he could help her find a good land. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.